No, 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 no! Ah!
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
This is CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. It's time to drop your socks, grab your real-time clocks, and let's rock.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Welcome to CoCoTALK episode 272. We have a special guest from Grant Bloedow.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Hello and welcome everybody.
Oh no! Oh, James Bond.
Perfect timing.
None of the balls.
Oh, Curtis, you want to do the intros while I try
They
to
are being stood on over top of
mute
spike.
this thing?
That's true. Endlessly suspended over the spikes. Probably not the way you want to go. Oh, that's unfortunate. Can you mecha up?
Curtis, you there?
Oh, I can't hear Curtis.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, I was muted. So the reason we were getting some background bleed here is that the Amigathon 2022 is actually going on right now. It's a 12-hour game-playing marathon that the Amigos host every year to raise money for the Children's Miracle Network. So we'll be plugging that a little bit later in the Game On News. It's a great cause. They've actually got a little bit of a medal now that they've actually raised over the last 5 years. It's been running over $20,000 for the Children's Miracle Network. It's pretty good. And I think they're over 3,000 already today.
I think
Last time I
did,
checked.
it was on the GBA.
Mark B, I think if you go down
all
and
those goodies I always wanted.
take the blue slider, you'll be fine. So
Well,
go down.
Yeah, but I don't see the one that's for that feed. I only got microphone and system sound,
Oh,
and we need the system sound.
Maybe just stop that stream then for now. We'll just talk about it when we get to that part of the news. That's going to get pretty distracting.
Oh no!
All right,
There we go.
I'll keep.
Killed my
Well, it's still
shortcut.
running. I'll keep working on it here, though. You keep
can
talking.
You yeah.
You don't like.
Okay.
I think I found it. Yes, I found it.
Oh, there you go.
I know. I found the button I had to check.
Yep. This is the way we work, folks. We fix everything after the show starts.
Yeah. Well, that's because we just
I thought we were
decided on
supposed
doing
to
this.
fix it in post. Mistakes, right? While you wait.
That's because we decided to do this right at airtime.
And by we mean you, Mark.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning a
Rolling
live
the
feed.
dice.
And we got a commercial on there anyway, so what the heck?
Yeah, and it's a good cause, so I mean, it's understandable. And they're not exactly strangers to having stream problems, as I'm sure Ken and a few other people that are members of their Discord know. Anyway, welcome to the show, everyone. I'll quickly go through intros, or do you want to do it, Mark?
Nah, you go ahead and do it. Let's preserve my voice.
Okay, because the screen's a little bit shrunk here, so I don't know if I'll be able to see everybody. But anyway, up in the upper left corner, from what I see, is Rick Euland. Welcome, Rick.
This ain't enough of a clue.
I was going to say Billy Gibbons, but
Yep, exactly.
next to him is our resident Apple guru, Mark Overholzer.
Hey, glad to be here, as usual.
And after that is our streamer who is having some technical difficulties, and we're going to blame that on the sickness he's had this week.
Yeah.
Mark Postley.
Hi. I don't use a box of Kleenex. I use a roll.
Oh, wow. I thought that was for your cat puking on your bed, but okay.
No, that was all this morning. That's why it's in the wash.
That was Mark
Okay.
Fix It and Post B.
Yeah. We'll fix it in post. That should be our motto. Next up from his wild out in the woods cabin is Ken Waters, alias Canadian Retro Things, and our host of the Game On segment. Welcome, Ken.
Hello, everybody. If I'm getting through on my crappy internet.
So far, so good.
You're not even red or green today.
You're not stuttering.
What?
Actually, I think most of the bandwidth is taken trying to render your shirt. Now on to the middle row on the left side, the maker of the new control panel you'll be seeing in the new ease of use. And I'm probably going to screw up your name now because all of a sudden I'm blanking out. Fred Provanja, correct?
That's right. Hello, yes. Hi, everyone.
Next after that, this guy is so important he has his own show segment. Ron Delvo of Ron's Garage Fan. Nope, you're muted, I think.
Yeah, sounds the best.
And don't forget a new YouTube channel every 2 weeks.
Yeah, and Facebook page.
Don't be jelly. If you can't think of good groups to make, don't do it.
Well, I can't, so I don't. Next to that, and he's pretending to be in the tropics, so the temperature-wise is probably actually higher than the tropics. We have our own organizer of CoCoFEST, brand new to the job this past year, Grant Leedy.
Hello, everybody.
But since we have another Grant on the show, we're just going to call him Greg. So then there's me. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I'll skip over our special guest here for just a second. Next to that, the guy who's pretending to be a circuit board or design schematic or something is James Diffendaffer.
Hello, everyone.
Also, he's been heavily doing some pretty cool stuff on the MC10 lately, too. So, and next, the Lord of the Floppies himself, and also one of the regulars on TeamSpeak Irregulars, which is an oxymoron, I guess. Sir David Ladd.
Why, hello, everybody. Are we ready for today's show? I hope we are. Curtis, stay out of trouble today, please. Let's get this train wreck moving.
Staying out of trouble is just not my thing, David. Sorry.
Sure that's David and it's not Jason?
Yeah, there's an extra bit of enthusiasm that David has that Jason just can't match.
Oh, okay.
I can usually tell by my bleeding eardrum.
I'm sure most people that's met me in person knows my enthusiasm.
Okay, and then next up, and since he's on a bit of limited time, we're actually going to talk to him first before we get into the Game On Challenge and the news and everything else, and that's Mr. Grant Bloedow, who's now the new newsletter editor and has his first new issue under his belt, and that's basically what he's here to talk about. We'll organize a full interview with him later on, but Grant, if you want to kind of talk about the newsletter, what's been your experience getting it going, what plans do you have for it, that type of thing?
Sure. First of all, thanks for welcoming me on here. It's the first time on the broadcast, although I've been following this show for over a year now. I went to the recent CoCoFEST for the first time in my life. As many years as I had wanted to get there, coming from Minneapolis as a youngster, I was not going to be able to make it, and reconnected and heard about the community through CoCoTALK here. And at the fest, I decided to try and volunteer some of my services. So I talked with some of the board members of the Glenside community and offered, I have a background in graphics and computers and printing, and I felt like that was the best place for me to try and give back to the community. So this taking on the newsletter, it seems sort of a daunting task, considering that Glenside is one of the longest running computer clubs in the country and may actually hold that title. I have gathered a large group of people who have been able to help me kind of orient myself and learning the ins and outs of each little, I wouldn't call them factions, but groups that gather online. We've got at least 3 podcasts, whether they're live or streamed regularly, and all of the news sites, including the Nitro 9, and there's a bunch of them that I'm going to be trying to highlight in the newsletter. But one of my goals in taking on the editor role is to take this newsletter and bring it into a place where it puts a context for all of the news that happens daily, because Curtis, you gather a lot, and Salvador kind of compiles and edits that and helps me put together a huge part of the newsletter. And everyone else in the community who has something they would like published that will end up being in a kind of a permanent repository is how I see the newsletter, of kind of a history of what's happening now, as well as kind of that context. We can find everything online in like a daily feed that we have, but those over time, they're either going to become obsolete, go offline, or end up in just an internet archive. And I think having a context and curation of some of that important things that are happening in the community is a valid and important part of keeping us alive.
Yeah, discoverability is a big thing, because I mean, Facebook's rather infamous for that, where you can post something that looks really cool, everybody's really excited about it. Somebody joins the community a month later, they'll never see it. They'll never even find it. Right. Stuff just disappears, you know. So having something, a place that people can just go to and know they're going to be able to get the stuff is good.
Right. And one of the things that I would love is if there are people who have things to contribute, whether it's something neat that they have an idea for or they're implementing. I know sometimes people want to keep things close to the vest until they're ready to announce it, but I'd be happy to either do a preview or a after view, you know, after you've released it, to kind of have something that's concise and announcing whatever is important.
Are you viewing that more as a product announcement type of service, or are you viewing that as a review of the product?
Or, you know, I think like you've done a good job here with the control panels, the Nitro OS9's updates that are happening. But yeah, if somebody wants to announce products, not so much as advertising, but just to like let the community know the things that are available to us. I love some of the video tutorials that I've looked at for some of the assembly as well as basic stuff. I'm still getting my head around the kind of decades of gap that I've had. I started working with the CoCo, I think in 85 or 86. I just was dying to have a computer, and that was an affordable one, and Radio Shack was nearby. And
what kind of hardware do you have now?
After the fest, it's funny. My wife said, look, if I go here, it's going to be really hard for me to not come back with some hardware. And she said, well, what can't you do with an emulator? And I said, well, that's true. You haven't made a good point. And I went to the show not intending to have anything. And after the show, I just said, look, this is going to have to happen. I enjoy working with the actual hardware and the kind of connectivity that you make with that. So I got a CoCo 3 on an auction for a really good deal. And Mark Marlette got me the memory upgrade and CPU to the 6309. And so I have a 512K right now. And the 6309, I had actually pre-ordered the CoCo SDC. And I'm doing some of the testing with the CoCo IO board right now. So those guys there's a community of people as well as the CoCo Nick that are trying to bring this networking to the internet on a level playing field for the CoCo. So I'm excited about that.
Did you ever save some of your floppies from back in the day?
Oh, yeah, no. The whole setup that I had was, you know, I think I sold it for just about 300. You know, and that was dual, the FD502. I didn't have a multi-pack. I had a 512 CoCo 3 at the time, and I had upgraded it. I just wholesaled it all to Rick's Trader, I think was the like a newsletter that kind of facilitated at that time. And I gratefully regret it. The only surviving software that I have was a published program in Rainbow, and it was, I think, the November 1990 issue. It was a Tetris style game loading a ship, and they named it Stevedore for the ship loaders and the dock workers. So if people want to check that out, that was the first thing I went when I found XROR online for an emulator to see if I could get that running, and it was kind of fun to see it.
That was a CoCo 3 program specifically, I presume?
It was CoCo 3, yeah. And, you know, I look at it now and I think it's sort of simplistic, but looking at a high schooler putting this together, I was pretty happy with the results. So
neat.
Just wanted to mention too, we got a comment from David Lord. He said, I saw the newsletter. Nice job. So
yeah, thanks. I've had some really good feedback, and I'm probably going to move away from using Word as the construction of it. That will give me a little bit more flexibility in terms of layout guidelines and standards. And I'd like to incorporate more links to some of these articles that are online, as well as having the summaries. If people noticed, there was a few places where you could click a link to like play the Ghost Rush online, just straight to the XROR. And I would like to have some things more like that to be able to highlight whatever news might be coming up in the community.
So are you using like professional desktop publishing software like InDesign or something?
Well, I would prefer that. I don't have the licenses for it. So I'm debating using this open source layout software called Scribus. And it's been around a very long time. It's comparable to InDesign, or actually it's comparable more to like the Quark Express publishing software from 10 years ago. But it has some really amazing flexibility, and it has some scripting and automation that can happen. So,
and it's available on all platforms.
That's the other important thing. I feel like if I'm going to pass this on, that structure is something I want anyone to be able to.
You don't want a platform centric, so that somebody's into some different operating system, they're going to have to do everything over from scratch again.
Right.
So other than the fact that you're planning on having things like live links, which I think is a great idea, do you have any other longer term plans for the newsletter, like other directions you want to take, like say the presentation of it, or or what's involved with it, what is actually going to be in it type thing?
Yeah, I think I'm still kind of in the place of like getting my head around what things I'd like to have, but I think trying to have some regular things that are published in addition to the club's activities. That's kind of the real premise of the publication. Having articles like Rick Ulan just he's put in another kind of installment on a Basic 09, I believe was the...
Yeah, he's doing a whole series basically, so.
Right. And I feel like when we, as a community, can put things in and support one another in terms of knowledge, there are a lot of people who've been here for the gap that I've been out and know way more than I do. And if they want to share some of that knowledge, I'll help to put it in a presentable form. And that's one of the things I'd like to do, is kind of bring some historical perspective of where things have come. And, I look at this hardware and my goodness, we have gone from pre-internet to like, there are people here developing this software today. And I mean, we see the enthusiasm for it, as well as the hardware that people do. So that's what really excites me, is seeing someone taking and either maximizing the resources we have or making additions to it.
Yeah, it seems like sometimes you think of it and it can happen. It's kind of scary.
That's right. That's right.
And if you ever want to take any of my pictures and throw them into maybe fit a spot where it's empty,
yes.
You're
well,
welcome.
Actually, I have. I've been following. There was I think it was Stevie who had put in kind of art things, and I think that could fit in the art and graphics of the computer. And I will be expanding that from where it was to have a little bit more placement. my first run at this, I wanted to make sure that we got it out on time because it was a little bit delayed. So.
Isn't it cool that length is not really a problem now? Yeah.
That's right. That's right. The PDF and having these electronic deliveries really make it convenient to put this all together. It's just a matter of size. I don't want to make it unwieldy for people. One of the things I'd love to see, I think our CoCo could try for something like rendering a PDF. I'm not the programmer to make this happen, but when I look at the resources that PDF came out of, it wasn't much greater than where we are with the CoCo 3. So I think it would have to be rendering down graphics quite a bit. But
well, we're probably an HTML of the PDF kind of thing, because we're already working on HTML rendering a lot. So it would be a good way to go. But still, yeah, you can always remember magazines continued on page 364. You know?
In a corner beside an ad somewhere, yeah.
So, and I have been highlighting some of the community who are offering services or software or just as a convenience of like having the community be able to find them. I was struggling to get my head around who sells this, who sells that item as I was trying to gather the pieces for my my setup. So,
and you're still planning on publishing it 4 times a year? Is that the...
It's our goal is to always have 4 every year. So since this issue came out late, I'm going to accelerate, and it's probably going to be approximately every 2 months to the end of the year, and then next year we'll just go more on a quarterly schedule. So. Okay.
Yeah, I mean the transition between Stevie and you, I mean there was a bit of a gap there, so yeah, we kind of got a little behind.
Yeah, and Bob Swoger stepped in and did one issue back in the winter edition that came out early this year for late last year. So
a few years ago, I took a stab. I have some graphics background too, but I took a stab at trying to recreate the an electronic form of the rainbow. And it was so demanding and so tough to do. And I was using like CorelDRAW, and
sure.
I put together a PDF of maybe, a few pages, but it was very difficult to do and really didn't get any help. So I was kind of floundered with it, And then a couple of other people tried to pick up the ball and it got dropped. But, in a way, the thing you're doing is similar to a rainbow, only much more abbreviated. And
right. Yeah, one of the bylaws, I think this is historical, is to say we shouldn't be competing with other magazine publications. And I frankly, I don't know that there are any that are currently focused on CoCo. No. So we're filling the gap of information, and I'm willing to expand this as a publication. And I think that I have the ability to bring about more of what your vision was, because I think Stevie started with kind of a cover that highlights the themes or the feeling of that issue, and that is one of my goals, is to bring it more in style with a periodical kind of publication. And I realized as I was doing the layout in Word here, the style of doing like call out boxes where you're doing programming, or you have, we do it on HTML online, and you have a different font and kind of blocked out areas. I'd really like to make sure that those stand out. Yeah. And so we have call outs and things. So
there are actually a couple of those in the next submission. So get going.
All right.
Now, since you have the floor here, is there anything you want to solicit people for? Is there any specific topics or types of things that you would like people to submit that you would like in the future newsletters?
Your summaries of news are really comprehensive. You get through, and I was feeling like, is there any places that I can find globally where there might be CoCo news that we could use and highlight? And I've actually, I think Stevie may have put in place one of these Google searches. They're automated. I can't remember the term they use, but I was considering using that for some keywords to make sure that these anywhere that it's published with TRS-80, CoCo, but that I would kind of get highlighted, that I could look at those sources and see whether it's a part of a material. But if anyone has submissions, sending them to newsletter@glensideccc.com will get to me, as well as if you had feedback on the newsletter or things that you'd like to see, I'm game.
That's what I do sometimes, just to put content on my Ron's Garage. I'll go and just hit Google for a CoCo or whatever, and then if you go down about 8 pages or 10 or 15, you'll see an article that someone, like, all of a sudden they got a wild hair and thought about, I used to have a CoCo, and then they go ahead and write a little thing up about how, back in the day they had one, and they'll, talk about it a little bit. I think that's really cool to see.
Right. Oh, and so, Curtis, I think when you're asking kind of what are my directions, there's a lot of people who have lots of experience, and I want to remember that we also are reaching out to the kind of extended community of vintage computing, and there will be people who will be joining the CoCo community out of interest, but don't have that history and background, and even
they have no idea about the CoCo
right.
thing. Yeah.
So I really want to have kind of startup articles that can kind of describe, hey, color basic is this, extended color basic is this. When you have a certain machine, how are they configured? And
what can an SDC do for you? And that kind
that's exactly right. Highlighting the kind of key components that you're going to need to utilize and maybe maximize the equipment that somebody new to CoCo will be able to use. I think as a community, that would be a good thing for us all to do, because it will only help expand kind of the interest.
Lowers the barrier to entry, because a lot of people didn't have a CoCo. I didn't get into CoCo till 2012. I'm new here.
Yeah, and just from being at BoatFest, I mean, there's some people that have joined our Discord from their community since then that didn't know much about the CoCo at all. It happened to be one of the featured 3 machines that had a gaming competition going on, so people were kind of interested in it because it wasn't as common as a C64 or an Atari 8-bit or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I always felt like the underdog, and I still do in that regard with CoCo. So
that's us.
Yeah.
Not as much of an underdog as, say, the Dragon, but yeah.
Yeah, right.
Honestly, though, I think the CoCo community is way tighter because of being the underdog, being the literally 4th class. I mean, because it was the Atari 8-bits, the Apple II, of course, snobs, and of course the Commodore, mass produced. The CoCo people, this community is way tighter. Seriously.
Right. And actually, I think that coming out of it, it's also a part of. I think the hardware that was here lent itself to exploration in ways some of the other systems just didn't. They were more of a off the shelf. Here's you go. Here's your
game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who got a CoCo early on, and their whole life came from that. I mean, they were in the computer industry and did cool things, and now they look back and think, oh yeah, I used to have one of those. And they'll come and visit us. Right.
Well, so I would call myself one of those people. I didn't get into the electrical side of things, but the software side of things clearly, by everything I learned, even though those the specifics of what I was learning when I was young aren't the same. It was all those principles of structure and data and
all the concepts.
Yeah, and those concepts that brought me into working, building I built PCs when it was in the late 90s probably, and early 2000s. I've gravitated towards a Mac unit because of the graphics background that I've had. And honestly, OS 10 just blew me away when it first came out. I was dying to have all of that Unix underneath it. And I love using that today. So that's one of the things at the show that really struck me. I'm failing on his first name, Strick.
Henry Strickland?
Yeah, I got connected with him, and I think you might have pointed me there, Curtis. I was like, I would love to see Python working, and I know that the constraints of the memory and everything wouldn't work. And you whoever it was that gave me the news was like, hey, he's got something going. And sure enough, he had like a Pico or a really small limited set of Python working, which I haven't yet tried, but I'm curious to see how it works.
Here's another example of something that Henry Strickland has done recently. If you can see my face.
No, we just see Grant, so Mark will have to switch the camera.
Oh, well, no worries. Then it's not really that important. But he's got Dig going on the CoCo, so I know your name servers, I know your IP addresses, I know your SPF files on a CoCo, which I think is just an absolutely.
There we go. We can see it now. So what were you saying that is?
Well, so here's all the information on, say, Mark's server at Play Networks, and here's your IP address, Mr. LCurtisBoyle.com.
I don't even know my IP address.
Well, it's 206-163-230-1808. But in any case, this is all the stuff that Henry's done on the CoCo in the last week or so. So we now have functional name server software, and although I don't think we could do much with an SPF file at this time, I know where to look. So yeah, dude's cool.
Build it one step at a time.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to talk to him as much at the show as I would have liked there, but it was the first time we met in person. Same with Grant and me, for that matter. But there's quite a few new faces for me to meet for the first time. It's cool.
Yeah, well, I guess that's all I have for now. At least as a highlighted guest. I'm tentatively trying to get to the Tandy Assembly this fall. I was trying to debate between the VCF Midwest or Tandy Assembly, but I feel like I would want to be in the CoCo community or the Tandy community because I think they have Model 4s and the earlier ones also.
Yeah.
So what do you do for a living?
I work for a label printing company, and I do all of their technical. A lot of variable printing with a high-speed inkjet, and I prep plates. They're flexographic plates, so if anybody's in the print industry, it's a polymer.
Yeah, we used to do the airline boarding passes with them.
Huh.
You make badges?
We do not do badges. That's a kind of a specialty.
Don't need no thinking badges.
Right. If they were we do a lot of pressure sensitive labels. So my background, I've done that for decades now, but I kind of moved from doing that pre-press technical graphics through networking. I managed their Linux server, which was mail and file servers for a while. We outsource it now. The company's grown and they've had a technical contact who does that for us. So anything else internal desktop support, it's all mine. So
this is going to be a side question. It's nothing to do with CoCo at all, but I was just curious what inkjet printers using, like Cytexes or?
No, it's a company. It's called Domino. And,
okay, yeah. I did some work with there too.
Yeah, they're crazy. For anyone who's interested in kind of that technology, the printer that we have is a single ink color, but they have full color ones. Yeah. It's a UV ink that's cured with
UV dryer lights
and heat. And man,
stick your arm under it, get a good tan instantly.
You would.
Is it stinky?
They run 250 to 300 feet per minute.
Yeah, that's what our Cytex did too. It was rated for 300 feet per minute. Our Domino, I think, was rated for 500.
Yeah, it might go higher. Our presses kind of limit what we can do based on our materials and stuff. But
yeah, our Cytex was a water-based thing, so it had to be on certain types of paper. Otherwise, it would just rub off. It wouldn't dry. We had infrared dryers on that one. We had ultraviolet on the Domino.
Awesome. Yeah. So
I found your article in the November 90 Rainbow Magazine.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. Thank you for highlighting that.
Stevedore. Reading the description, it sounds like a Tetris type game.
It was.
Yeah.
Show us
and
the
actually,
page.
It's on page 10 for those of you at home. Let's see. So there we go.
Yeah.
And you were how old when you submitted this?
16 or 17. I can't remember the year when I finished it, but essentially there's one kind of, I hadn't played Tetris very much, so I only had seen it to know how it worked. There was one piece that was kind of the like zigzag shape, And when I do the flipping, it becomes the second piece. Like they should have had a second one going zigzag this way and the other. And I didn't realize as I was programming it that I didn't take that into account. So
the listing only takes up 1 page, 3 columns.
Yeah.
So
Not
wouldn't
much
take too
typing.
long to type it in.
Or just OCR it in.
So how did you feel when that thing came out?
I was just enthusiastic. I wish they had paid better, but I was just overjoyed to have had something published. And
yeah, that was kind of my feeling too. I didn't, the pay wasn't the greatest.
Same here, yeah.
Now, last question on the newsletter. So this next issue, like you said, you want to kind of ramp up the speed here to kind of catch the issues up. What is the deadline for people getting you stuff for this next newsletter?
If anyone wants to submit something in 2 weeks, I think would be good for me to then start laying it out. I'll take any submission because I can push it into the following issue. But I know that Grant is going to need when you have the news to have available on the venue and stuff, we'll make sure that gets put in. And I'm thinking we're here in late July. Jim Brain had said that for the elections for next year, we're going to have those nominees put in place. And that will probably go on not this next issue, but the following, depending on the schedule. I just have to make sure that we have enough time for people to see that.
And how do people submit articles to you? Like, should it be email or?
They can,
Discord or what?
Would be great. You can reach me on the CoCo Discord as Grant B. I think I might have changed my name to Bloedow with Grant B in parentheses. Or newsletter at glensideccc.com.
And do you have certain submission guidelines as to what formats these should be in? Like, should they be in
I can
PDF
take
or
anything. Yeah, I can take almost anything because being in pre-press, I transfer files all the time. Word file, just straight text files, photos. If I have any trouble, I'll just reach out to you. But I guess Word would probably be the easiest for most people. But if it's a Google Doc, whatever you need.
Are you going to attempt to give a different treatment to the name of to the logo for the Glenside Club?
Well, I did.
Have you thought about it?
Yeah, I did modify it a little bit. The name of the newsletter. Are you talking about the clubs itself? Or the newsletter?
The logo. The logo.
The logo.
Yeah. Well, so the masthead for the newsletter, I kind of have modified already, but I would like to I want to pay homage to the history that's there. Yet we're not going to change the name. That's kind of a fixed thing.
Yeah.
But I'm working with an idea. You know how the beginning of like Warner Brothers movies, their logo has now kind of themed itself based on the genre, where if they're like mystery and dark, it'll have their logo in dark and kind of the theme music. I wouldn't mind having it adjust itself to match the theme of the issue. So.
Okay. It'd be pretty interesting. I'll send stuff in WordStar. We'll see if we can read that or not.
Oh, that one will be a little bit trickier. But you know what? If you give me something, I'll try. Otherwise, I'll reach out for scream for help.
Telewriter.
Yeah, Telewriter.
VIP writer, Telewriter.
Say that Telewriter 64 file.
Window writer for OS9. Yeah.
How about something from Deskmate? CoCo 3 Deskmate.
Yeah, I was going to say I still have WordStar myself, so yeah, could submit some stuff that way, or could really go old school DBase 3.
All right, let's not try to scare Grant away.
Yeah,
now.
we don't have to. You don't have to
make his life more difficult. Yeah.
Can I send you a floppy in the mail?
Yeah.
That one I currently have no way of doing it. So, David, you're going to have to help me out with that.
I'll send you cassette tape. There we go.
I can do that.
Did you see that somebody has a software for a recording device that can record all of your computer onto a audio track of some kind?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Is it? I mean, because I've seen with just the cassette cable, you'd be able to record. So how are you suggesting?
No. It was an article recently I saw. I thought it was in our CoCo group, but maybe not. Interesting.
It sounds familiar. I was thinking it was sort of like a memory dump that it would take to allow you to then restore your settings, or the whole state of the machine.
So anyway, you basically want for the next newsletter, you would like to get submissions within 2 weeks, and they can email them to you in a variety of formats.
Right. Yeah, and we're I haven't been as involved, but Grant has reached out to me to kind of help with some of the publication part of knowing the CoCoFEST events and details. So you'll probably be hearing from me through him, or through him from me.
Okay.
So that's
we'll really get
13th.
confused as to which one to call Grant.
Initials, Grant B, Grant L, just like Mark O and Mark B.
I'm still confused with the marks here, so the Grants is just going to really fry my poor pea-sized brain.
You Canadians.
Or just your initials, GL or GB or
MO, MC, MB.
Right. Well, if anyone has submissions or have thoughts for future, that's exactly what I'd like to reach out. And otherwise, I'm going to be gathering. And for small things, I don't really attribute if I'm just kind of announcing in the same way that news is. But if there's something large that I really want to include, I'm not going to go and just publish somebody else's work. So I'll certainly reach out to people. If you're submitting something on someone else's behalf, I'll want to make sure it's clear with them. It's okay to be included.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, thanks for coming on and kind of giving us an update on the newsletter, what kind of direction you're planning on taking it, how to get submissions to you. The schedule is going to be like every 2 months, like you said, until you kind of get caught up. So that's something people needed to know, especially if they're submitting stuff. But the schedule will be bumped up for a little bit. So that's good to know. So
2
thanks for
weeks
coming.
is
We'll have to have you on
August
for a
13th.
full interview at some point to go through your massive rainbow publishing career.
That was it. So thanks. I'll stick around for a little while longer, but thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And then do we want to get it right into the game on challenge results, and then we'll have a break after that, Mark? Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, let's go ahead and run at least commercial one. And then
You can do that right now?
jump
Okay.
yeah.
You are watching CoCoTALK, the world's leading weekly video podcast featuring the Tandy Color Computer. We spread the love to the past, present, and future for all models, including the original color computer, the CoCo 3, and the world-renowned exclusive French-Canadian CoCo 2, the Radio Shack.
CoCoTALK would like to thank the patrons who sponsor our program, so our heartfelt gratitude goes out to Alan Huffman, Alan Murphy, Blair Ledoux, Boat and Aaron, Brendan Donahue, Brian Weasler, Brian Walsh, Karen Anscombe, D. Bruce Moore, Daddy Burrito, Daniel Williams, Diego, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Graham Vebke, Grant B., Grant Leedy, Henry Strickland, Jason Downs, J Style, Ken Reichert, Malfunct, Melly, Michael Pitsley, Mike Rayburn, OG Hugo, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Paul Thayer, Retro Tech Time, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Rocky Hill, Stephen Wagner, Steve Batson, Steve Rasmussen, Terry Steen, Terry Steggy, The Backyard Shed Gang, Tim Thayer, Tom C., Tom Gunderson, Tom Heron, Tom S., Tony C., and William Athing. Thank you ever so much, patrons.
Welcome everybody to this week's CoCoTALK Game On Challenge of the Week, where we played Xenion, or Xenion, however you want to pronounce it. We had a total of 21 players. There was Exile in Paradise with 5,100, Henry with 13,100, Chris B, 19,600, 8-Bits in the Basement, 20,200. Timbotech, 24,450. AJ, 24,950. Mark B, 25,400. Mr. Dave 6309, 28,858. Sabhead, 31,358. Paul Shoemaker, 36,308. Ed Rhodes, 41,450. Jim Rye, 52,408. Shenley, 59,588. David Craker, 64,200. Tasman, 65,120. Canadian Retro Things, 73,646. Sloopy Malibu, 87,846. L. Curtis Boyle, 160,778. Nick Morentes, 222,244.
Damn.
Buck Owens, 301,454. And the number one score this week is Brazia 1972 with 904,550. Thanks everybody that played. We will see you next week.
More than tripled the second place score.
Right.
Wow.
Yes, there was definitely a clear winner this week.
And part of that's the patience of playing it, because once you kind of like memorize the maps a bit and get good enough at it, you can pretty well play forever. I mean, Nick and I both hit that. We both stopped our games without continuing because it was starting to get a little boring.
Well, Nick's high score, he actually did live on the air. So, and he did actually play right to the end of his game there.
Oh, okay. Because mine I actually cut off. But I was playing on the slower versions. Once I kicked it up, like during the live stream where I was playing the native 609 top speed one, that's a lot harder for me. Now I know Bryza actually is able to get into hundreds of thousands even playing at that speed, so he's still far, far better than I am. But
I had my best game using the full speed one.
Actually, I guess, Ken, for those who did not take part in it, maybe you should explain what we're talking about with these different speed versions.
Okay, well, there was actually a number of different versions of the game. There was the original game, which suffers from a lot of slowdown and is not a very fast game. Still fun to play, but I believe it was in 2019, Curtis?
Yeah, November 2019, end of November, I think is when I released it.
Curtis optimized it, so he released 3 optimized versions. A 6809 optimized version, a full 6309 optimized version, and then a dialed back 6309 optimized version.
Yeah, and that last one was due to complaints that people said I sped it up too much. It was too hard. So I think, ironically enough, when I first released it, Bryza himself was one of the ones, if I remember correctly, that said that the full 609 optimized version was too fast. Could I dial it back a bit? Because the 609 enhanced, he said, was better, but it was a little too slow still. So I did the one in the middle, and now that he's gotten used to it all, now he's playing it on the full throttle one, and he has no problems at all. So part of it's just, practice and skill.
Well, I just found that I don't have the reaction time anymore, the reflexes to play it on the full speed. But, I pretty much sucked at all of them. So,
yeah. Well, I like on the live stream there, I played the full speed version for most of it, and I think the highest I got was 81,000, and that was a fair bit higher than my second place score. That was more of a fluke.
My highest score I got was on the dialed back 6309 version.
So for those of you on the panel that actually participated and maybe tried some of the different versions, what was your go-to speed that you felt most comfortable playing the game with? Myself personally, I would have to say the 609 enhanced or the 609 partially enhanced were my mainstays. How about you, Ken?
Definitely the 6309 partially enhanced was the best. And I mean, the game still did suffer from some slowdown, but it wasn't as bad. I personally thought that was just a feature to give you a little break to be able to take a sip of coffee while you're playing or something.
Yeah. And basically because of the way his engine works, it has like layers that you can put stuff on. Like even the Texas stuff's a layer. It's just like the way Nick has done stuff like Gunstar. And the more larger stuff you've got on a layer to add, the slower it gets, because it's basically it draws the background every time, then it draws the first layer over top, and then draws the second layer of whatever's on top of that, type of thing. And when you get stuff like the force field that goes across the entire screen and is animated, or if you have like a mothership, or worse yet, 2 motherships on the screen at once, it really starts to bog it down. And I basically did the copying stuff. Copying these different layers over is what I sped up, which helps, but it's not consistent. So it's just proportionally faster. Anybody else on the panel try it this week? Grant, I think you said you forgot to submit one, but you would.
Yeah, I only tried the 6809 enhanced version, and I was, frankly, looking at the performance that you're getting and how much is all moving. It's hard pressed to see the games of the era of our computer that could have done that. That's really amazing and a testament to the people who are optimizing as well as designing these games today. It's really amazing.
Yeah. Well, talking to Nick, I mean, he's mentioned, like, I don't think the author, Michael Duncan, knew how to do like FIRQ based background sound, because it does slow down a little bit of sound, which is why he did so many quick sound effects. But the layering engine he did, I mean, that was something Nick didn't do back then. That was ahead of what Nick was doing. Right. Now, Nick's done it since, and he's learned a lot of other programming techniques to speed it up, which is why Gunstar is like a full screen game doing that kind of thing. And he's got multi-layer, backgrounds and stuff in the asteroid field. So, but yeah, for the time, it was pretty good.
Yeah, for the time, and definitely since he didn't know a lot of the tricks and stuff that there was lots of discussion about in Discord. So this one garnered lots of technical discussions. So.
Yeah, and plus it's one of the few games Nick's actually good at that's not one of his own. So that was good. Yeah. He actually came on and played. So
I had to double check that his original submission wasn't photoshopped.
Yeah, well, we saw him live, so. Yeah.
Yep. But the one thing, of course, that people that played it may have noticed is that there was a glitch in the scoring where all of a sudden it would start throwing some symbols in there rather than numbers. So
yeah, and actually, for anybody who's played the original version, did that happen? Because Tim Linder was thinking that maybe my patches caused that.
I think it did happen once or twice, just not as often. I did play the slower version at the end of the live stream last night, and I think at least on one or two of the games that I played, it popped up, but not as bad, I guess.
Okay. So it might be like I only changed the copying the layers routine, which should have nothing to do with score, but maybe it's a shared routine, or maybe it's catching it, mid frame, because I changed the timing of the frame so that it's happening a bit more often or something, and it's kind of glitching. I don't know.
It's almost basically like the tiles for the numbers are getting overridden with another tile.
Yeah, or the pointer to where to grab the data to put there is grabbing a regular tile instead of a text character tile.
And I think it's actually what it's doing is it's shifting the numbers over, because if you don't have any glitching in the score, your score always ends in 0, because there's nothing that should give you a single point. But anytime you get a glitch, you get a number like at 8? The end that's not a 0, an 8 or a 6, I think, are the ones that turned out. So.
Okay, that's interesting, though. You said you tried it on the stock version, and you actually did see it happening there, just not as often. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be the fact that somebody removed the copy protection and screwed it up. That's happened before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing I want to mention before you get into the details and showing the live stream here, Ken, or you can bring it up while I'm talking. There is, if you take a look at the original Diecom ads, because this is sold twice. Once it was sold through Diecom in 87, 88 range. And that ad actually mentions there was a CoCo 1 and 2 version for 64K that would run on cassette or disc. The CoCo 3 version required disk drive. And none of us that I know of have ever seen the cassette version. And I don't remember seeing it at Rainbow Fest when Dave Dyes was selling it. I only remember the CoCo 3 version. So I don't know if that was, like, he had ads for certain things where they would give the system requirements for both sets of CoCos if it worked on both. And I'm wondering if that was just a screw up on the ad layout. But the manual actually mentions that too.
Yeah, if you look at the manual, but in the manual, it actually says that the CoCo 1.2 version is on cassette only, and the CoCo 3 version is on disc only.
Yeah, which contradicts the ad.
Yeah.
So that was released in 87, 88, and Brian Palmer, Bryza, I had mentioned during the stream, he actually was in contact with the author, Michael Duncan, not too long ago, I think 3 years ago. And there was a pretty big falling out between him and Dave Dyes. I'm assuming probably in not getting paid or something like that. Michael being from Australia, the author's from Australia. But I do know that by the time that game came out from Diecom was having, as we found in our interview with Glenn Dahlgren, the big fiasco with Rainbow, where Rainbow was charging him 2 to 3 times as much for the exact same ads that Sundog was getting because he was Canadian, and Lonnie was definitely favoring Native American type developers and stuff there. And I know Dave got so mad about that he pulled out of the CoCo market really abruptly, like he just cut, never showed up at a fest, never advertised again. I'm wondering if Michael might have got caught in the crossfire of that, and that's what happened. So Bryce is going to try to get a hold of him and see if either Nick or myself can get a hold of him, and maybe we'll have him on for an interview to talk about the development of the game, et cetera, but also what happened. And I'm still trying to get a hold of Dave Dyes himself too. Henry Reitfeld actually, I guess, knew him growing up a little bit, and actually is still in contact with him. And also his sister Lori, who actually did some of the artwork for the manuals and the artwork for some of the games too. So I'm hoping maybe we can get the full perspective of what happened here all the way around, and maybe get a group panel, because there's a little bit of controversy with the way Rainbow did advertise. And I heard some of that even back in the day, that he definitely had a favored list that got better rates than, just somebody new to the thing. Like if you're friends with
friends
Lonnie.
and family rate.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly. So yeah, that'd be an interesting bit of history to try to get, tracked down and then put onto an interview that we can actually put up for everybody to preserve for the future type thing. I don't want to make it like a super controversy thing, but it's the way the business worked back then. I've heard that in other retro computer circles too, that was a definite thing for magazine advertisers and stuff at the time. So,
Well, talking about magazines, thanks to Buck Owens, there was I was able to find one high score submission in Rainbow. And right here, so there was, this was the January 1990 Rainbow. And so 2 scores were submitted. High score of 429,530. So I don't know, the game came out in 89, so it hadn't been around all that long. So maybe it's a completely feasible score. Obviously, we well beat that, or one person well beat that this time. But yeah. And then
if I'm right on the timelines, I'd have to go check the ads, but I don't think it was on sale that long before Dicom pulled on the market. So you had a limited window to get the game. And then it ended up being, as we've seen the manuals in the archive, that he ended up selling it himself, I think, through a company called Remcoms in Australia in 1993, I believe it was. And that was a CoCo 3 only at that point too.
So anybody that played it, what are some tips and tricks? Obviously, from what people were saying, there is definitely some, there's patterns that you can follow.
Yeah, I mean, like most of these types of games, memorize the maps because they're static. So if you have force fields, you have to go shoot a certain thing to disable the force fields. You can kind of predict, ahead of time. Okay, the force field's going to show up on the right. Now I have to go shoot that thing. So you can kind of like guide your ship so you're ready to do it as soon as it pops on the screen.
And I think my internet connection is way too crappy to show the video here of the live stream. So
yeah, it's a slideshow.
Yeah.
The only other one I have. Okay.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, being out of the cabin is a great place to be, but the internet's not that good.
Yeah, and the satellite internet's a bit expensive. The biggest tip I have, aside from like memorizing the maps, etc., is that if you've got shots coming down at you, or aliens are coming down at you, or even the tanks, if you're up on the screen vertically somewhat, and then you go diagonal, like if you're trying to time like the mothership, or trying to time the tanks and some of the other aliens coming after you, if you go down, you can go at the same speed, which gives you more time to dodge the bullets. So if you're going diagonally, you can say upper left to lower right, and there's a bullet coming down a little bit to the right of you, you can actually keep ahead of it somewhat. And if you're actually got the ships, I think you go at the exact same speed. So basically they won't hit you if you're safe already. So you can actually take care of some of the aliens and the tanks in particular, where you can actually get more time to get in to shoot them between shots. Whereas if you just go straight left and right, you have less time to react, so you tend to get killed more.
Well, unfortunately, I tried shutting a few things down, and it's still a slideshow. So,
I mean, you can pause the screen there, just kind of show what the various people were playing, and also what stage they were at the time.
Try that. So here you can see we actually have Nick Morentes in the bottom corner there.
Yeah, the left side seems to be the Real Hardware fan club there, right?
Yeah. So I'm at the top there in the top corner with my Real Hardware. Timbotech in the bottom corner there is also using Real Hardware. So we're 50-50 split there of Real Hardware and emulators.
Yeah, because Nick was using hardware.
But you can see Sloopy and Jim are playing on the slightly different the composite palette. So everything is.
I have a question on that. Was that and I know the game asks you, do you have an RGB monitor at the very beginning? So obviously it lets you pick between the two. Was this picking the wrong one and just happened to be pretty decent colors for the game, or did he actually have a completely different color set for composite?
I have absolutely no idea, actually.
Because I never tried that. In fact, I've never seen these colors before the live stream. So
I've never seen those colors on a CoCo before. So, I mean, that's actually nice green.
Yeah, I mean, this is a 4-color game, first of all. Like most CoCo 3 games were 16 color. This is one of the ones that was actually just 4. Black, white, green, and blue is the default. But that one kind of adds a green and an orange, red. I don't know what you want to call that one. But it actually looks pretty decent. I was surprised because usually if you pick the wrong one, you get weird pinks and all kinds of crap.
The Puyan palettes.
Now the difference between Sloopy and Jim is Sloopy's using the original palette for composite, and Jim's using the updated palette on VCC.
So the Sloopy's a little redder and Jim's a little oranger, I think it looks.
Yeah, Sloopy's was a little softer. I tried those different settings, so I recognize them. So that's just the difference between the two. Is you tell the game you're using RGB, but VCC you tell it you're using composite, and then you have your 2 choices of palettes. So
okay, yeah, because Jim Wright just mentioned in the chat that he entered yes for the RGB prompt, so the colors are set to be for an RGB monitor, but then he picked composite in the emulator
VCC
itself.
Yeah.
So that's not the colors that would show up on composite if you played it on composite the way it was designed. That's just kind of a fluke that actually has decent colors picking the wrong one.
It's better to be lucky than good. But
yeah, it's a really good game. I mean, it's basically a Xevious, but I'd say it goes farther than Xevious. You have these different planets you're traveling between, like when you first start the game. And I'll show this when we get to the gaming news, because I'll actually show up the new page I hacked out literally at the start of the Game On Challenge.
Well, it's interesting because you can really see his love of sci-fi in this, because there's some very recognizable bad guys in it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them. Like I was going through the Australian version of the manual, which, by the way, if you're going to download the manual, get the Australian version because it has a lot more information in it than the DICOM one does. The aliens that are coming down towards you, so it's not including ground-based things like radar stations and force fields and tanks and that kind of stuff. There's 27 different designs of aliens coming down. You've got little happy face things. You've got stuff from Star Wars, from Star Trek. What are some of the other ones? I remember
scrubbing bubbles.
Yeah.
Any Cylons from Battlestar Galactica? I didn't play the game, so I don't know if they had them or not.
Yes, actually, right at the very beginning, those are Cylon ships.
Thought so.
Yeah, there's quite a few different ones in there, and a lot of variety. I mean, even the 4-color landscapes you're going between the planets, because you get this little part where you're flying the stars between planets. Then you see the planet kind of come in, scrolling on, and then some of them will have cities and basically kind of like the first level of Gunstar type thing. And then later on you get cratered moons, and then you'll get some stuff that looks like ice stuff. And there's a lot of variety. I mean, for the 4-color palette in particular, and each planet is a little bit different. They kind of have their own designs as to what kind of is on them, and they're different sizes too, which if you look on the map at the beginning of the game where it actually kind of shows you the 4 orbits, I think it's the biggest planet first, and then it gets to smaller ones as you go. And that's actually reflected as you're flying over the terrain. And basically, there is a finish to not the game itself, but if you sweep through the entire system, you actually get a splash screen saying that you've completed it. But now we're going to have you go through it again, but this time with more aliens coming at you. And I know Buck Owens and I think Bryce had both mentioned that when you get to the 3rd round, it really starts to pick up. I didn't play long enough to get that far. I only got to the 2nd, but
it's a nice looking game. I'll have to check it out.
It is actually, for the time, definitely, it is a very impressive game.
Yeah. I think the most impressive thing, and I think the reason there's 2 reasons I think he picked the 4-color palette. One, there was a CoCo 1.2 version, which you probably would have done 4-color artifacting. But 2, most of the games that had this big of maps and scrolling and everything else usually required more than 128K. So you'd need a 512K upgrade to CoCo 3 at the time. And stuff like Gunstar is a perfect example of that, Contras and a bunch of others. This one actually ran perfectly fine on 128K. So if you had just had a stock CoCo 3 straight from Radio Shack, as long as you had a disk drive, you're ready, and joysticks, you're ready to go.
Yeah, so definitely a game that I would have been very happy to have back in the day.
Yeah. Oh, one other tip: use the smart bombs.
Yes, and I know a lot of people were having problems saying that the smart bombs didn't work, but I did put into the Discord there and stuff that the smart bombs only work if you're not firing your guns.
Yeah, so you have to let go of the joystick button, then slap a space bar, and then go back to firing.
And as I think Bryza had said, if it could be remapped to the second button on the joystick, it would make the game much easier.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if there's enough room. Like the patches I did had to fit in place because I don't have source code, obviously, and I really don't feel like disassembling the whole darn thing.
Oh, come on, Curtis. That's like a...
No, I've done it once in Nitrous 9 itself, and that's enough. Thanks. And Fractals, I did that too.
Well, if we can get the author on, maybe we can get him to add that. We'll start feature creeping.
Or even if he just has the source code. I mean, if the source code's available and I just have to reassemble it, then I can go patch that pretty easily. It's just trying to figure out what all this coding was doing.
Okay. Well, yeah. So it was a successful live game last night. We had lots of people playing and a very successful week of submitting scores. We're once again at 21 players this week. So
out of curiosity, what was the most people you had playing the game on the live stream? Because I was so busy playing the game, I couldn't pay attention to the stream.
I think it was 7 we had at one point, but that was only for like just a little bit. And then I think
that's
Mark,
pretty good. That's one of the higher.
We had 7, and then I think Mark blew up his VCC. And then by the time he got it going again, we only had 6 again.
Yeah, it was a pretty good turnout for live. I mean, and it's
because
a good
apparently
game,
there's something in it that if you hit reset, like if you soft reset it while you're playing. Actually, I did it on my real hardware, and the screen turns red, and it's got "Oh no" written in the center, and then the computer crashes. I don't know what he did for that, but
if he did "Oh no," then he probably did that on purpose.
Yeah.
I know VCC would explode.
Yeah, and it shut down Mark's VCC, but I tried it on the my real hardware, and it went red, went to "Oh no," and then just a bunch of garbage on the screen. I had to reset it back into basic to start up again. So
I wonder if that was completely on by design, or if he has some sort of check to see if it looks like it's pirated or something, and then he does that as a
could be. I don't know. Or just to prevent people from being able to get into the source code somehow or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because some of the copy protection, like a few of them used to self-destruct the disks themselves. Like Sam Sleuth is rather famous for doing that. If it detected it was on a pirated thing, it would trash the directory track and fill it with "buy your own" all the way up down through the thing, and then the game wouldn't work anymore.
You could think less insidious reasons, like you set up the game and hit reset to start it. Well, no, you can't just hit reset again. You've got to start over and set up the game before you hit reset to start it, in software, so to speak. So if the reset vector is screwed up, then what are you going to do if you hit it again and you haven't gone through initialization?
Yeah, but would you have put an "Oh no" on the screen? That sounds like more purposeful.
That, you got into the reset vector in ill-gotten way, and the game's not prepared to reset at this point, so we're crashing now. Bye.
Yeah, I guess. Plus, if he had self-modifying code or something, which I didn't look that extensively, but if he does, if you hit reset and try to restart the game with the code as it currently stands, it might not be in a usable state anyway. So that might have been about that too. That's a good point. I never thought of that.
Anyway, so I think a lot of people had a lot of fun playing it. A few people thought there's only a couple people that thought it was too easy, so that's a bonus.
Yeah, Bryza, Nick,
Bryza, Nick, and Buck.
Yeah,
And actually, Buck said that he doesn't even like these kind of games, but he still submitted 3 or 4 different scores. So,
yeah. Well, I know Bryce had mentioned specifically that he said if it gets too easy on the slower ones, like the 6-to-none enhanced or 6-to-run and partially enhanced, he said it does get challenging again once you kick it into full 6-to-none. Obviously, if you can get just about 1 million score, it's still not that challenging for him.
And I'm sure you do have it in the news, Curtis, but this game was also featured on a certain Drunk Retro channel.
Yep, I do have that featured in the Game On News.
So we'll talk more about that in the Game On News. and the insults to me that were made in the video. As Tim couldn't remember my name.
And there's somebody claiming to be Nick Marentes in the chat here on YouTube, says, where do I find the Zoom ID? It looks like he wants to join the call, but I mean, he's on every week. So what happened to the Zoom ID for him? I have no idea. Anyway, if somebody wants to message that to him quick.
Where's this at? Where's he at?
You can probably get him on Discord would be the easiest there.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right. Well, I guess that is all about the game, unless maybe we can talk quickly to Nick about what he thought when he gets on. But for now, I will show what next week's game is going to be. So this game is a bit of a mashup.
Oh, which one is this now? Shoot. It's either the Aardvark one or it's Nurble Force.
It's the Aardvark one.
Okay, so that's a Dave Edson Defender clone. What the heck is the name?
Defender style game, yeah.
Planet Raiders. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, I'm about to lose my reputation.
And we will be playing it on hard this week.
Now, you picked another one I don't think I have on my site yet, right?
Yes, it's on your site.
Oh, good.
I'm looking at it right now.
I had to really scramble to get Xenion on there during the show yesterday. So.
Well, I did ask you about that at the beginning, that it wasn't on your site, and you're saying, but I don't know. I think
because I've got another 600 games to go yet that I know of. So yeah, there's lots.
Well, I think we miscommunicated because it sounded like you said, "Well, I did the optimization for it, so that's why I didn't put it up," or something like that, or you haven't been able to get a hold of the author, so you didn't put it up, or anyway.
Yeah, I think at the time I did the optimizations, I was planning on doing it. Then because I was doing a bunch of optimizations once. I was also doing color car action and Gauntlet, and I even did an attempt at Gauntlet 2, which I might have to upload because I did try playing it. It was a much lower level of optimization because it was already pretty optimized. And it didn't seem to make that much of a difference. It looked very slightly smoother, but very, very slightly. But then somebody pointed out that where Gauntlet 2 lags the worst is when you get a screen full of ghosts or something like that. And I didn't play it long enough when I was testing it to say, is it going to help when the screen gets overwhelmed with like 50 creatures? So I'll have to try that again. And if it actually does smooth that out, I might upload that version, because I was a bit disappointed when I did that one. It didn't look like it fixed much. And it's also frame locked.
Yeah, Gauntlet 2 is one of my favorite games back in the day, but I did find that it was ran kind of slow, especially when there were a lot of sprites on the screen at once.
Yeah, and because it's frame locked, I mean, that's more reprogramming than I probably am really willing to do. Trying to figure out where all that stuff's kept and how it decides when to upgrade the frames, etc. But if it smooths out the busy screens, then maybe I will submit it again.
I will steer a little bit back to the game for next week.
Oh, right. Planet Raider. Right. Go ahead.
A couple things about Planet Raider is it's for the CoCo 1, 2, or 3. You only need 16K of RAM and a joystick. As I said, we're playing on hard. There's 3 levels: easy, hard, and impossible. So.
And you play tested hard's a pretty nice.
I play tested. Impossible is really hard. So hard is not that hard, but impossible, there's a huge jump between hard and impossible. So I think we'll go with hard. It might be a little easy for some of the people, but we got to think about the people that are just trying this game out for the first time and not scare them off.
Yeah, well, if we did impossible, then all the scores would be in single digits, right?
Except for Buck Owens.
Yeah.
Anyways, this was published in 1982, and it is actually as it looked in the picture, defender, but it's also got choplifter bits to it too, because rather than the aliens stealing the people, you have to pick them up to finish the level. So you have to go through, shoot all the bad guys, and pick up the people off the ground.
Okay, so it's a bit more like Protectors 2 that way.
Yeah, but you don't have to actually kill all the bad guys. You just have to save all the people, or kill the people if you don't want as many points. You can just shoot them, depending on what kind of mood you're in.
And Nick Merides, I see a couple people have sent you some direct messages, etc., for getting into the Zoom call. So hope you can make it on here. And we're trying to drag this segment out as long as we can so you can join before it ends.
Yep. Because it's not very often that we have Nick Merides in the top 3 scorers.
Except for his own games. I don't think that's ever happened.
Does he even do that in his own games?
Yeah, no, he tests his own games enough that he could literally kill everybody else in the score there.
Yeah, he cheats.
Yeah, that's more likely. He's just got the codes for cheating.
So yeah, that's a good one. So Dave Edson, it's also one of the earlier Defender clones in the CoCo.
Yeah,
because 82 would have been Protectors 2 is out in 82, I guess. But I'm trying to remember, like the Tom Mix one, Protectors. I think that was 83. Starfire would have been late 82, early 83. I think late 82. What's the Tandy one that's kind of loosely based on Defender by Greg Zumwalt?
Oh yeah.
Starblaze?
Yes.
Starblaze, yeah.
That was later. That was definitely 83.
Kind of a mix between Defender and Starmaster from the Atari.
Yeah. Planet Invasion by Spectra was 83, I'm pretty sure. Nerval Force, which was by Softlaw / what was your game division called? Color Quest or whatever. I think that was 83 as well. So that's definitely an earlier one. And Dave Edson, I mean, at that time, he was a teenager in high school, and he'd cranked out like 8 or 9 games in the span of like a year and a half.
And just so you know, also, once you save all the people on the level, the way to end the level is you have to fly out the top of the screen.
Okay, so it's kind of like Gorgon on the Apple, where you had to go up there to dodge satellites and stuff. Okay, Nick, are you coming on or not?
He probably can't figure out how to work Zoom.
That could be. Let me see if he's meant to be Discord. I don't normally check Discord because it's too distracting while the show's on. But
yeah, he's not showing up as online on Discord.
You do a commercial break, maybe.
Yeah, I would do a commercial break.
Yeah, okay. We can do that. Give him some time here. He did send me a message apparently about 20 minutes ago saying, "What's the meeting ID for CoCoTALK? My Zoom has lost it." I think it's more the operator there, Nick, not Zoom.
Oh, that's a shot cast across the bow.
All right, here's a commercial.
Hello, I'm David Ladd. Thank you for watching CoCoTALK, the world's leading live CoCoTALK show. ESP 8266-01 RS-232 TTL Wi-Fi network, 4-pin DIN, Fitbanger, DB9, PC IP, DriveWire.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Original Gamer Stevie Stroh here with you. And in case you didn't know, I've actually got merchandise, right? So I've got now 2 DVDs. This was my first DVD I released last year for the 25th anniversary last Chicago CoCoFest. This features 20 videos and 3 hours of color computer game videos. This is my second DVD. This is a brand new one for the 2017 last Chicago CoCoFest. And this one features 13 brand new color computer gameplay videos that you won't see anywhere else. RoboCop. Ooh, RoboCop. Gotcha, sucker. This is not bad. Not bad at all. Yes, I did it. Oh, freaking right. Look at that. I made it past the yellow belt. Very cool. Oh, crap. I am getting the crap freaking bombed the hell out of me here. Okay, the square guy Looks kind of like a puckering sphincter. All right, there we go. Game over.
Oh, that didn't last long.
That's what she said. Okay, so I've got to jump over the spikes and under the ball. So, if you like my videos and you want to help support a starving artist, you can head on over to 8bit256.com and grab yourself a copy of one or both of these DVDs because they're both awesome. And if you like color computer gameplay videos, you might like these DVDs. So check them out. Thanks for watching my videos, everybody.
In a world where RGB produces black and white video, one cable can make a difference. Switcheroo. CoCo3ScartCable.com.
Fletcher, I don't need that report tomorrow.
Great, JT.
I need it tonight.
But JT...
Fletcher saved $300 on her office away from the office. Radio Shack's revolutionary Model 100 computer. It's a word processor, phone directory, and dialer. It even communicates with the office computer.
Fletcher, how's that report? Fletcher.
Radio Shack's Model 100. Save $300 and put it to work.
You'll go far, Fletcher. You'll go far.
Should have known what he was saying.
Hey, we're back.
But by the way, Nick is here, and I just want to let Nick know that Curtis was bad-mouthing Nick on the show, so let him have it, Nick.
Tattletale.
Nothing's changed. Hey,
Snitches
so
get stitches, Greg.
Can you restart the show because I missed the start?
You didn't miss anything too important.
The only reason I was bad-mouthing Nick, besides his obvious problems trying to use Zoom, is that he beat my score this week, so I had to do something.
Well,
yeah,
it's because he cheated. Don't forget that. He cheated.
Is there any other way?
See, told you.
Now, Nick, you're one of the people that actually found Xenion. We'll just kind of finish up the Xenion discussion now that you're here. You're one of the few people that actually thought it was a little bit too easy.
It was, yes. Yeah. On real, I was playing on real hardware and using my Waco joystick as well, so it was really easy. I probably could have kept on going, but it just gets a bit monotonous after a while.
Now, was that on which of the 4 speed levels was that on?
I chose your 6809 enhanced one.
Okay, so you didn't try the 2 faster ones past that. So that might have made a difference.
I was going to,
difficulty.
but I thought, the middle of the road just setting might have been the best. And it was good, except every now and then it still slowed down a lot.
Yeah.
But it was bearable. It's a good game, though. Apart from that, I think it could have been a better game if you didn't have it having. It's so easy to get extra ships and recharge your fuel so easily. Because that's what was happening. I'd get shot, but then I knew it was just a matter of time before I got another ship anyway. So you just keep gaining more ships and all that along the way.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear your take maybe in a future episode of trying it on the even faster version to see if the speed difference makes it hard enough that it becomes a challenging game for you.
It probably makes it a little bit harder, but because it'll be fast when there's only a few aliens up there, but then it'll slow down and it'll be probably just right.
Yeah. I think the biggest flaw in it is that the speed consistency, because like you said, if the screen
it's more
gets
the
busy.
consistency, I think, rather than the speed. But yeah. Oh, so who got number one? A bet.
Ken
on the score.
Bryza, wasn't it?
Bryza got.
Oh,
the first
Bryza,
place.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Bryza,
just under
then
$1 million.
Yeah.
He wanted to break $1 million, but he didn't quite make it.
Yeah. Who was second? Buck Owens in?
Buck Owens, and then you.
Yeah,
hey, I came third. Not bad.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, do you have an opinion on this week's game, or did you see what it was?
There was that scrambler type. I'd never played it before. I don't know what it's like.
Oh, okay. So it's a new one to you.
Yeah.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to bring up with you. You actually met the author of Xenion, however you want to pronounce it, once back in the day, didn't you?
Yeah, he came over. He came over one Saturday afternoon back in '88, I think it was. I didn't know who he was, but he came over with a friend, the fellow who wrote Croyd. He just ducked over one day. He lived on the Gold Coast, which is about an hour away from me normally, and he must have came to Brisbane, my town, to meet that Croyd guy,
Andrew
who
Simpson.
I knew.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it, Simpson. Yeah, and they just came over for the afternoon for about an hour. So I don't know if I'd seen his game even back then, Xenion. I think I'd heard about it, so I didn't really know exactly who he was. That was pretty well the first time I'd heard about him. But I do remember he said he was moving over to the IBM PC at that time, so he was only short-lived. Although I suspect he programmed a bit more earlier before that, because according to Bryza, he had a dragon, which was a bit more rare back in Australia back then. You know, most people who had a CoCo type machine had a CoCo. Dragons weren't as common. They were available, but most people, you know, if you wanted a CoCo type machine, you bought a CoCo because there were Radio Shacks everywhere. But yeah, apparently he had a dragon, so he must have programmed the game originally on a dragon for a CoCo 1 and 2. And according to Bryza, who emailed with him more often, when he went to go to the US market via Diacom said, look, can you get us a CoCo 3 version? So I think he just basically converted his CoCo 1 and 2 game across to the CoCo 3 and chose the CoCo 3 mode and all that. Hence why the game only uses 4 colors, and you can actually see that it was actually done on a smaller screen, and it was just stretched by putting some padding graphics on the right hand side just to go to the full width CoCo 3 screen. But yeah, I don't know what the rest of the politics came after that as to why it then disappeared from Diacom as well. Would have been good to have found the original CoCo 1 and 2 version, though.
Yeah. I actually put a plea for that out on the page.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I'm suspecting, we talked about it earlier, Nick. I don't know if you were listening at that point in time, but I speculate, because that was one of the last new games Diacom brought out, is that might have been when the whole big stink with Rainbow and Lonnie happened that Glenn Dahlgren's talked about. And I think Diacom just exited the CoCo community in such a hurry after that, because he was so ticked off that probably Michael never got paid, because Bryce had mentioned that there's a bit of a bad blood between Dave and Michael too, and that he might have been just part of the fallout of the whole Rainbow Lonnie thing.
Yeah, and by that time he already decided to move over to the PC anyway, so he was gone. Shame, because I think he did have some talent. Yeah, I think the graphics routines he's got in the game show that he understood about multi-layering the graphics and all that, and he had a good sense of artwork too. I think his artwork was very good. He did some really good stuff for 4 colors. That was awesome. Yeah, 4 colors. He did a really good job. Really looks good.
Oh, see there. That's why we have to get a hold of him, so we can get him back into the CoCo community and get him making some more games.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just mention how many Ferraris you have, Nick. I'm sure he'll start it right up.
I bought all the Ferraris. So
Australia is not Ferrari-less unless you go to Nick's house.
Yep, that's all I know about it.
Cool. At some point we'll have to cover Croyd too. Andrew Simpson's game is another Australian-generated game. I mean, Nick and I were discussing this earlier in the week here. Like, basically, if you look at the CoCo 3 market in particular, the States is obviously the biggest market. Canada, I would say, was second, but Australia was a pretty close third. And then after that, it was like a few scatterings in Europe and stuff. But
Yeah.
For some reason,
I
Australia
think-
always had a really strong cocoa market.
Yeah, we had a lot of user groups. I never used to go to any of them, but
That's because you were too good for them, I think. So
yeah, I only played my games. Or should I say, I could only play my games.
Yeah.
well, you
'cause
proved
those
that
cheat
wrong
codes.
yesterday.
Gotta have those cheat
Yeah.
codes.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, thanks for popping on. I'm glad we got some of your perspective. The fact you actually met
Finally
the
got
author.
on.
Yeah. The fact you actually met the author is pretty cool. So hopefully, I know Bryce had mentioned that he'd been in contact with Michael just 3 years ago. So hopefully, if we can get in contact with him again, I'd love to have him on. Just as an
For an
about-
interview anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Be good to hear the background story of it all.
Yeah,
And to
and then
see it.
Henry Reitfeld's trying to get me in contact with Dave. Now we'll see. Dave might still be pretty bitter about the whole thing, so I don't know if he'll want to do it or not. But I'd love to have him and his sister on to talk about, because she did some of the graphics for the manuals and the games themselves, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And plus, maybe have those two kind of reconcile somewhat, because I'm pretty certain that the timeline was that all that hit at once. So it just, was kind of just bad luck.
Yeah. I think that era, though, 88, 89, was a pretty active era for the CoCo 3 for software development, if I recall. There was a lot happening at that
Sundog,
time.
Tandy was still bringing out some pretty cool new stuff.
Yeah.
The tail end of the Diecom era. Go Sub with Jeremy Spiller before he started selling it through Sundog. Then he brought Crystal
it
City
was,
and Xenix. And yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff going on. And I'm not even mentioning OS9 yet. So yeah.
Oh, OS what?
Something those Canadians only use, nothing here, nobody in the States.
It's so easy.
Just read the 1,100 page manual. It's no problem at all.
Did you write that manual?
No, but I ran away from it as soon as I saw how big it was.
Yeah. I use it to weigh down papers on the back of a flatbed truck when I'm driving on the highway. So
I used it for toilet paper. No.
No, that's the Commodore manual you're thinking of. Sorry.
I probably was actually, I was probably one of the first people to actually own or have bought OS9 in Australia. Ironically enough, because around 86, 87 it was when Tandy decided to sell my Donut Dilemma game. When OS9 became available in the US, I actually had a call from Tandy, the guy that I was dealing with in the Tandy offices who were buying my software. And he said, look, OS9 has just come into the warehouse. Would you like to get it? Because, we recommend you can develop software for it. So I ordered it, and and that was, I was thinking that from here on I'll be doing OS9 games. But yeah, I didn't get very far. I didn't get far in it at all. I've still got the manual, so I didn't burn it. But
oh, we're working on a new version of the manual anyway for next
Yeah, I
time. There's
know,
a lot
yeah.
of stuff added and changed and whatever else. So it was a good manual, though it was overwhelming. I didn't learn parts of it till several years later myself.
it was a programmer's manual. It wasn't really a.
Yeah, it was a
manual
bit
for
more
everyone.
user friendly than some other programmers' manuals I saw for the rival systems at the time. But yeah, it was just overwhelming. I mean, when you have this tome that's like this thick,
Yeah.
it's a bit
And
intimidating.
Who
It's a
reads
two-hander.
manuals anyway?
Yeah.
All right, we're ready for news.
Yeah, you can do the news segment thing, and I'll just go straight to game on news, and I'll go straight into regular news after that.
All right, let's see. I was going to do it this way.
From around the world, what you need to know. Get caught up on news with L. Curtis Boyle.
And now a Muppet News Flash.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Screen, turn the sound on because I forget.
So MMA is asking, what was the best OS9 game?
I guess it depends what genre you like. Like, for example, the Sierra games, King's Quest 3 and Leisure Suit Larry, and of course we've had all the other ones added on since. Those were pretty popular.
Coronis Rifts.
Yep.
Coronis Rifts was that was the one I played. I never did get Fractalus back in the day, but that would have been a good one too.
Yeah, Coronis was a bit more involved. They had more thinking to do. If you're into simulators, Flight Sim 2 and Sub Battle Simulator both were popular with people that like that genre. It's a bit too complicated for me.
Yeah, I don't know if Tandy had the Fractalus in the stores back then.
They did here.
Yeah,
actually, Fractalus came up before Coronis did.
Yeah, but over here I never saw. I saw the Coronis, but I
sounds like you're talking about the virus.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
The Cronus and the Fractalus, yeah.
I would say Rescue and Fractalus was my favorite.
Yeah.
Another popular one that I really liked, and it's an education game, is Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? That was a fun one.
Yeah, that one had a big manual.
Yeah, I never got into that one, but I probably should have. But
actually, it didn't have a big manual. It just had that. What was it had the almanac, which you could look at the clues if you didn't know it, but you didn't need that.
Of course, I thought you had to read that.
Because it's the almanac of '87 is the
yeah. I mean, countries have changed now, so it's a bit harder to figure it out. Yeah. I mean, there's some third-party ones too, like Alan Huffman had his Space Invaders one, which is part of EOU. Kaimugai got ported to it, which actually has some features that the original disc basic version does not have. Like you can start on any level. If you're running a native mode, it runs faster. Thexter's on there. Shanghai has been ported. Shanghai Basic 09 by Sean Driscoll is actually a pretty decent one. It's actually got a few features that the official Activision one doesn't have. Like you're uncovering a picture, and if you get all the tiles off, you have to get to see the resulting picture. So you have a bit of a reward besides the fire-breathing dragon thing. So it's a bit different. There's a few. Floyd Wrestler has done a ton of ones in Basic 09, and we've got a few on there already. Magic Stones and Gem Quest. Space App by him will be on the next version of EOU. I still got to fix up Dungeon Depths and Tank Rescue. Tank Rescue runs way too darn fast with Nitrous 9, so I have to slow it down.
What was that breakout style game? Smash, was it? Or
Smash, yeah.
Yeah, Smash and Bonk are the two I can think of.
Yeah, Smash was, I think it's Smash I'm thinking of. That one was really good. I like that one.
Yeah, and that one you can even design your own levels.
Yeah.
And Sokobon, you can design your own levels too. There's even some level 1 ones like Cave Walker, which is a kind of the sequel to Downland, Biosphere, if you're into that kind of sim life type thing. Yeah, there's a few.
There was like a PacOS 9 game that you could pop up in multi-view while other things were, you were waiting for other things to happen. It was pretty fun.
Yeah. That one's on EOU too. Yeah, there's a few. I mean, there's dozens. I haven't got most of them on EOU yet because I have to finish testing them and stuff. Because a few things got broke over the years with some changes to the underlying code, so I have to patch it a little bit. Like Cave Walker right now, it has some speed issues.
Don't even get me started on Cave Walker.
Yeah, we researched it. It's cheating is part of the problem. It's talking directly to PIAs and stuff. Naughty, not supposed to do that. But we'll figure it out eventually here, and we'll get that up and running again.
The desktop publisher was the best.
Home Publisher. Newspaper 09 is not bad. Home Publisher was like a shot in the sky that didn't quite have enough thrust to get up into the atmosphere type thing.
Right.
Yeah. It was designed well. It looks good from a screenshot, as Nick has mentioned before, but the speed, and the speed's actually fixable. But it would require more than 128K, and Tandy pretty well stipulated that it has to run on 128K at the time. So they kind of weren't able to do anything. The only other way we could have done is if it, directly mapped in the screen, like if it ran off one of the green VDG screens, you could have had it a lot faster. But
I would very much like to steal from Home Publisher as a HTML renderer. They're doing all the right things.
Yeah, but it definitely needs some speeding up.
Yeah, if we did it at modern speed, it would be a good head start on what I'm trying to accomplish. Or you just figure out how to get into that.
Yeah. The thing is, I did have it partially disassembled because I had to patch it to run under Nitrous 9 because they made their own software interrupt calls or replace system calls with their own. And unfortunately, that was on the hard drive of my TC9 that crashed. So that's code I completely lost.
Is there anyone in the CoCo world They can't say I lost something important in a hard drive that crashed.
Especially in the OS9 world. I think a lot of us did that.
Yeah, I might have done it 2 or 3 times.
I've only done it once, and I keep backups of everything. Like I have multiple copies of Nitrous 9 of various versions. So on the PC, backed up onto SD cards, and I think I even got a few older ones burnt onto DVDs and stuff. So
I had a couple crashes like back in the early 2000s, but haven't had any for a long time now. Mainly, I guess, because I've switched to SDC.
Yeah. Well, I've had problems on the SDC because SD cards do wear out after so many writes, and I'm writing, like when developing Nitrous 9 EOU, I do a lot of writes. I'm assembling
Good
stuff.
to know.
And stuff, so.
High endurance SD cards.
Even they eventually will screw up. The one in
yes,
my main
eventually.
Yeah.
So this is a backup.
Yeah, 3.5-inch discs. Yeah.
A couple of days, yeah, and 720K discs. So
some of the software I did recover was from an old work backup done on those same style of discs. We backed up our work drive. We had an 80 meg drive and a 40 meg drive, and we backed up the whole thing on 3.5s. And
I have a bunch of those myself. Yeah.
The backup had a few corrupted discs in it too, but we were using Bruce Icehead Stream, which actually is smart enough to try to resync if you have missed discs. So it will still recover the files that it can, which was a godsend because it recovered some stuff that I thought was permanently lost.
Are we supposed to be doing the news?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That news thing.
That's an asparagus call, I think. All right, for the first one, well, Ken kind of hinted at this. So Tim and AJ, and Tim actually joined us on the live stream yesterday. AJ was going to, but then got a little bit busy, so she couldn't, though she did pop up in the chat for a bit. But they played Xenion as their sibling rivalry, and actually they both liked playing the game so much they ended up doing an extended episode longer than they normally do. Normally they're around 15, 20 minutes. This was 40 to go through it, with the standard, ridiculing and stuff of each other. I'll mute this a little bit here, but one thing I will mention is that AJ learned how to trash talk during this episode, and it seemed to be working on Tim because his scores got a little bit worse after that started. Also, I think hopefully this, because I got a better internet connection than Ken, hopefully this is not showing up too bad as far as showing the actual gameplay in action. And I think he's using the 6.809 enhanced version here, I believe.
Like a smart bomb that'll kill everything on the screen.
Oh, shoot. That really damaged me.
Anyway, you can catch the whole thing and watch AJ learning to trash talk Tim. It was amazing, I have to say. Next up, Jim Gary ported a game of bingo, the standard bingo game with bingo cards, etc. Now, he's got a blog spot onto this one because as you'll notice on the credits here on this third last line on the screen, it mentions the original version by Larry Bethram, which was done on Dartmouth style BASIC, was written in January of 1966. This has been one of the oldest BASIC ports I have ever seen on any platform. Because, BASIC was barely around for a couple of years at this point. And I'd never even heard of it, so I didn't know this one existed here. So I'll play a little bit of it. You've got basically competing bingo cards, and it's not doing blackout style bingo. It's basically doing the line-based bingo. But for, porting a game that's literally older than I am, to the MC10, that's retro at a whole new level. The MC10, was 20 years after this. Almost. I even tries to simulate, the what do you call the bingo caller person, Carnival Barker or something? I don't know. Repeats the thing a couple of times. And now you don't actually do anything here.
Caller.
Okay. You don't actually do anything here. You just watch it basically map the stuff to the two cards, your randomly generated cards type thing, and then tells you who wins. So it's not really a quote unquote game, but it's more like a bingo simulation. But because it's such an old thing, he actually did a blog post entry here. I'm talking about porting it over, and he actually had to change some bugs in the original code. At least as he found it published type thing from January of 66. So kind of a bit of a history there and about its conversion it over. So that's kind of interesting in and of itself. And the fact that it's retro of retro you're taking a 1983 retro computer and taking a game that's 17 years older than that was done on minis and mainframes and moving it over to there on one of the very earliest versions of BASIC ever made. I just found that awesome. The next thing Jim Gary did is he did an update to Jim Menick's Draw Poker. And this is another one where he had to fix some bugs in the original code. I won't play the video because we've showed it on the previous show here, but basically his bug addendums here, which has been a growing list of things he's fixed here. So 8 and 9 is what he added on this latest version if you want to go grab it. Part of it was some stuff that he fixed just, on his own type thing. And then others, he mentions that, Menick did not reinitialize the variable storing your hand. So he's actually fixing some bugs in the original code. So he has a kind of an explanation there, but you can download the updated source. You can also check the updated video showing the gameplay with the new version. Now this here is Amigathon, and I'm kind of glad muted, but this is the Amigos. So that's Brent and Aaron. It looks like some of the other Team Speaker regulars and some of the other members of their local Taze Valley Retro Computer Club are actually showing up there. I know Brent's going to be showing up as well too. And this is a fundraiser they've done now. This is the 5th year, I believe. And they raise money for the Children's Hospital Miracle Network. And they actually just received a little, I don't know what you call it, a badge or a coin or something like that, that was commemorating the fact they've raised over $20,000 over the last 5 years. And they've actually been bumping up their goal this year. Originally, because they, quite a few people were, out of work and stuff. So a lot of people are a bit more financially strapped than normal. So they only set a goal of $3,000. Now, I will mention Frank at Retro Rewind said that as soon as they hit $1,000 of donations, he'll match that through Retro Rewind. And he did that already. So he gave $1,000 donation. So awesome. Kudos to Frank for that. But they set it for 3,000. They already almost passed that before the show started. And then they passed that early in the morning. So they bumped it up to 4,000 the last time I checked. And so basically, if you go to the URL bit.ly/Amigathon 2022, you can do the donations there. You can watch the live stream on Twitch. I'm doing a little thing here. But it's going on for 12 hours. It started at 9 a.m. Eastern, I believe. So it's going to 9 p.m. Eastern tonight. And you can just donate some money through, I think it's PayPal or something, or even through credit card, etc. And they're just basically playing games, talking about the games and stuff. And then it's just kind of a fun way to raise money. And as I said, it's been quite successful. And it all goes to kids in need of care in hospitals, etc. So great cause too. So I donated last year. I'll probably donate a little bit later today. I won't be able to donate too much because I'm still kind of getting my business recovered from COVID too. But I'll throw in a few bucks. Anyway, if you're into retro gaming, feel free to take part in the chat, etc. too. There's a few people here on the panel that are actually members of their Discord. And there, Edvin just donated $25. So, and they've passed the $4,000 mark. So second goal reached. Hi, this is what we were talking about earlier. I finally got off my butt and made the Xenion entry game on the webpage, which I was scrambling to do. I was going to try to get done before the Game On Challenge Live, but there was enough screenshots I took here that I took longer, so that's why I was late getting onto it. I think I took an extra half an hour. So we were talking earlier about the solar system you have to go through here. So if you look in the upper right corner, it's probably a little small, especially if you're watching on a phone or something, but you can see the little Tanos planetary system, which has the 4 planets you go through, and you actually see the planets. You scroll over, and then you're out in space for a while, and then you're back over a planetary surface, and you kind of progress through it as you go through, and then you play. And we were mentioning about the different terrains. You see some of the like cityscapes. You can see some of the cratered moons. There's like water areas, different pipe type things. Here's a bit of crater mixed with rivers. People are playing with the mothership here. You can see on the lower left corner that there's 2 motherships at once in some parts of the game, which makes it a bit more challenging. And then the lower right, if you've completed the complete run of 4 planets, you get the congratulations on reaching the end of the alien system. Prepare now as I send you back, to fight the evil forces again type thing, and it gets even harder. And I know Buck and Bryza both mentioned that the 3rd round, it really starts to get difficult. There's quite a few more aliens, etc. But it's a pretty good game. And if you go onto my webpage here, you can also get this on the Color Computer Archive, though I believe Guim has separated the 609 versions into one download. 609 version is separate download. If you want to get all 4 to try all 4, I have one zip file here on my site that actually has all 4 in one shot. So you just don't do it the one download. Now, if you don't have a 609, that's kind of pointless. You might as well just go get the 6809 dual versions on the archive itself. So that was me starting to catch up. Next up, CoCoFEST, which we covered last week. He's been doing these new videos of playing Dragon games on real hardware. And he's actually got the original cassettes for all of these. So we get to see some of the artwork up close. I won't play too much of the gameplay unless you guys have a request. If it's a game you haven't seen before, to let me know and I'll play a little bit of clip of it. But this one here contains Rommel 3D, which was originally a Mictron game from the States that got sold on the Dragon as well. It's basically Battlezone. And then 3D Sidab Attack, which is baddies spelt backwards. That one is actually one that was original for the Dragon. And it's kind of a flying through a cityscape, basically, and you're launching missiles and trying to shoot down the aliens, and you have to turn corners and stuff. And it actually has a pretty cool 3D effect where it almost looks like buildings at night. You can see like lit up windows and stuff you're driving through. So any request to see any of the gameplay on either of these two, or on to the next batch of games he's doing?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that a nah or a yeah?
It was a nah.
Okay. Next two we did are Draconian and Fury. These are both originally USA games. Draconian from Tom Mix, of course. Fury by Computer Shack / Mictron. One of the earlier ones, kind of basically a Bosconian clone with enhancements and a Time Pilot with unenhancements. This is missing some stuff. So we covered those two too. And once again, this here is actually the artwork you got with Fury if you bought in the States, because Mictron / Computer Shack was one of the few companies that actually did full color printed artwork for their games on the CoCo. Next one here is Demon Seed and Mud Pies. Both of these are Mictron / Computer Shack. Once again, the Demon Seed for sure was the artwork they used on the CoCo version. I can't remember what the Mud Pies on the CoCo, that it was like cartoony like this, or it actually had one of their models type thing. But of course, they renamed the main guy to Cuthbert because that's what Dragon people do. So your main antagonist there, protagonist, I should say. Next up is Intergalactic Force and Laser Run. Intergalactic Force was originally from Antico in the States, and it was actually sold on cartridge. It was one of the few third-party games on cartridge that was not coming through Radio Shack. And it's the trench scene from Star Wars, basically, in 3D. And Laser Run's a uniquely Dragon one. And that one, I don't remember exactly what that looks like, to be honest. Let's see. So that's Intergalactic Force. And this is the Laser Run from the Dragon, which I don't think I've seen this one before.
Down the corridor and shoot down as
Oh
many
yeah, no, I have.
TIE
It's a
fighters as
basic
you
one
can.
instead of machine language. So I know Rainbow had published one of these similar ones too in one of their 1982 issues. They made a kind of a 3D trench war, a 3D advanced trench warfare, I think it was called. So this was one that did page flipping to do the animation of the trench. And it actually worked pretty good in basic. I mean, both versions that I've seen, this one and the one that Rainbow did, actually, for a basic game, looked pretty decent. Intergalactic Force is a bit more smooth playing because it's actually a machine language game.
You
Though
must fly through the waves of TIE fighters and shoot them while dodging their deadly accurate laser.
Oh yeah,
bombs.
that's pretty smooth.
Yeah, and you basically shoot the ships. You have to not get hit by those bars coming across. And then occasionally there's that hole in the floor you have to drop a bomb in. And then you get some bonus points. My one problem with that game is that it's too easy and it's too simple. I mean, it's cool for the first little while, but it gets kind of dull fast. Actually, any of these here, because there's nothing else to do. That's all you do. You've seen the whole game. Next up, we have Cuthbert in the Jungle and Crash, both Tom Mix games. Cuthbert in the Jungle, of course, is originally called Trap Ball by Ken Kalish. And of course, because it's Dragon, they had to rename him to Cuthbert. I won't bother playing those. Crash, I don't think we've covered that one on the gameplay thing yet. That one's a bit strange. It's a binary file you load, but it plays a little bit slow. And from what I can tell, it's actually calling the get put routines in BASIC to do the animation, though it does have some 4-voice music and stuff. There's some machine language, true machine language in there, but I don't know if that was a game that he just made a lot of ROM calls or if he actually had done it and compiled it in BASIC. So it's, through one of the BASIC compilers available at the time, and then just added the 4-voice machine as a subroutine in it. So it's a 4-screen game. It's a platformer. I don't know if it's a clone of anything. I don't recall seeing an arcade game that kind of does the same thing, but you have to throw ropes and then climb across and dodge things and pick up treasures and stuff. So if you're into platformers, then you'll probably like that one. And the last one I've got here is a game page on YouTube called Retro Mantra. And this one here is showing Donkey Kong clones and lookalikes. So basically, these are games that are not officially licensed. There's some arcade ones that are kind of loosely based in Donkey Kong. The one they showed here was Kangaroo. Kangaroo, to me, has enough original elements. It's not exactly a clone. It's got some unique stuff itself. But some of the other ones they cover for other machines here include 2 CoCo ones. So they got Donkey Monkey by Electronics, and they got Monkey Kong by Screenplay. So let's fast forward. So Donkey Monkey, unfortunately, they actually have it running for a pirated copy because it's not copyright 1983. It's not by Jay White, and it's not by Whiteware. It's by Harvey Brofman. It was sold through Telectronics, and it was actually 1982. So this is a hacked version, which I have seen before. I've actually got the original discs from Harvey that he wrote this game on. I've actually got some source code and builds of the game before it was finished, because he sent me all of his old CoCo discs a while that he had that still worked. And I've actually put the source code to Donkey Monkey up on my website and on the Color Computer Archives. If you want to see how a game in 1982 was written, you can actually load it up and take a look at it, modify it, do whatever you want. Unfortunately, he also has the colors reversed here too. But I don't know, most of you have seen Donkey Monkey, I presume. So I don't know if we need to show any gameplay footage of this. I don't think we've covered this one in the game challenge, have we, Ken?
I don't recall it.
I don't think so.
Because this one is one of the ones that's a looser clone. It's only got 2 screens. And the rivet screen is standard rivet screen, basically, with the only direct differences being that you've got a fire extinguisher you jump up to get instead of a hammer, which actually makes more sense. And the fact that you can change direction in the air mid-jump, which is pretty cool. But the second screen is a hybrid of the elevator screen and then the main original starting screen, which is called, I'm blanking on it, the one with the angled girder screen, I guess. But you actually combine the two into one screen. So you actually have an elevator on the left, and then you get onto the girders on the right, dodging barrels. So it's kind of a hybrid of the two. That was pretty cool. It's definitely not as good as Donkey King graphically or play-wise, but it's easier, it's simpler. I know one of the magazines that actually reviewed them head-to-head said that, Donkey King, if you want the authentic arcade experience, that's definitely by far the best you could get in the CoCo 1 and 2 at the time. But Donkey Monkey was easier for kids and also had some, unique gameplay when they combined the 2 levels. So it kind of has a soft spot in my heart, even though it's not like the best game. And it has a cool intro. If you guys haven't seen it before, I'm going to get out of here, aren't I? Yeah, I'll never mind. But basically, instead of having the do and then stomping on the girders thing, the ape actually crawls up. Oh, go away. The ape actually crawls up the ladder and then plays a little riff on the piano to start the game, which is just odd and weird, but it was kind of fun. So that's it for the game on news this week. So basically, if you want to check, they have a couple other ones here too. Some of which are more different than others. Yeah, so he's got like Crazy Kong on the Commodore 64, Chameleon in the arcade, Aldo's Adventure for DOS, Beauty and the Beast for the television, and Crazy Kong City for the ZX Spectrum. So you can actually see a few other alternative Donkey Kongs that are a little bit different than the arcade. They're not trying to exactly clone it. So that's the game on news. So let me switch over to regular news here. And for you Dragon people in the audience, there's a bit of a surprise at the end that I don't know if you guys have seen it already, but I was kind of surprised by it. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. Okay. Okay, so we mentioned.
God. That's a scary face.
I haven't even got him talking yet. So Jason Reichert, we covered, I think was it last week or the week before, we covered that he'd done his kind of a little bit late, but he covered his first day of CoCoFEST. And this is his coverage. It's another 14 minutes of video covering the second day. I won't play it. Go check it out. But he kind of covers some of the other people that he missed, some of the booths that he missed, some of the seminars he's got. He's got the national anthems that Brian Shivering plays through MIDI on the CoCo at the beginning of the show, which we had 3 of this year. We had Canada and the United States, and what was the other one? Somewhere in South America, I think, or something. I can't remember which. Do you guys remember what the nationality was?
Wasn't Brazil, was it?
Might have been, because we had a few people from there at the show.
Was it Argentina? Or?
Make any sense? Or Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm blanking. My apologies, because I know that we had a couple of people that had come up from there to attend the show, and I should have known their names, but I'm just blanking. Some stupid. Anyway, check it out. It's a pretty good little summary of the second day of the fest. Next up, Don Barber. Now, this is kind of a fascinating thing. This is more for the hardcore geeks, of course, but he's actually published, and he's got a GitHub with all the source code for this, and a 689 assembly language of doing bit keys. RSA implementation of bit keys up to 2048 bits. And he actually has a little screenshot here of it running, and you can encrypt and decrypt and all kinds of stuff. And so people were asking, well, how fast does it run? Because he has it running variable sizes. Like you can go down to like a 32-bit key. And he said like a 32-bit key takes about under a minute to generate. If you're doing a full 2048-bit key on the CoCo, it takes a month to generate. So you probably don't want to use that live on the web page browser there, Rick. But I kind of talked to him. I said, I was wondering if you tried implementing it in 609 native mode, like just turn native mode on and see if it speeds up. And he's also got a lot of memory copies that are being done in there too. So I kind of suggested that. And he thought, well, that's too much work. I'm kind of done this project. I don't want to really do too much. If this source goes up there, anybody else wants to change it. I said, well, the native mode check is super easy. I mean, it's just basically a load mode 1. You're done. That's all you got to do. So he actually did implement it. He said it runs about 8% faster right off the hop, and he hasn't done any of the memory transfers. There's some extended math you could do, the extra registers, et cetera. Like you could speed it up a fair bit. So I don't know if getting it down to a 32-bit key, if like we were talking before, Rick, about having maybe some kind of local encryption for CoCo specific stuff that wouldn't go up to like modern day standards, would be enough to be, a little bit secure.
By overdoing it to start, then you can always back off to a reasonable amount of CPU time and get CoCo to CoCo security. You'd have to figure out how to keep emulators out, but yeah, there's something here that would be really useful.
Yeah. Like I said, if you did, like I took a look at the code, I saw little bits in here and there that could even optimize in the 609 a little bit, to be honest. There's a lot of code though, and there's a lot of math, and I don't get along in my brain. So
that's the point.
The James Diffendaffers of the world would be able to handle this much better than I could, to be honest. But it's a fascinating project, and the fact that somebody actually got it done, because I remember we talked about the C64 had something for doing Bitcoin mining, and I know the 609 or 609 could do better, because they were saying it was going to take X million years to generate a Bitcoin or something like that. I'm sure we could cut it down to a few 100,000. Yeah, exactly. So it's an example of pushing the CoCo to try to do something modern, and it actually can do it. It's not going to be the quickest thing in the world. Now, of course, if you overdrive it in an emulator, like OVCC up to 533 megahertz. Well, now you're talking, you could probably do a decent sized bit key. Anyway, the source is available on his GitHub, in the show notes, etc. It's also on the page here if you want to go check it out.
Sounds like you can generate your keys on other systems and then just bring them over to the CoCo. So that'll keep you from, spending forever.
Yeah, because I imagine decrypting is a lot faster than encrypting, I would presume, if you have the key already. I don't know. I didn't have a chance to run.
So decrypting back, it won't be a month. It'll be a week.
Oh, well, there you go. So if it took a minute to encrypt a 32-bit key, to decrypt it might take like 15 seconds. And now he's got it 8% faster than that with 609 mode. And like I said, there's TFMs galore you could put in there and stuff to speed it up.
I thought the decrypting had a longer key than the encrypting.
I haven't tried running it. I'm not. You guys are more experts on this whole, fancy internet stuff than I am.
Having a key, we could probably get to a usable time using that key. So this is all a good way to go. It's
actually what makes sense is because this has a high overhead would be to distribute symmetric keys that you wouldn't have to have so much encryption time, and then distribute them using this. So you download a package, decrypt it with this, and then use your, symmetric keys. So it'd be easier to do in real time.
So the point being, do it the hard way first, and you can always do it easier and buy time. But if you've never done it the hard way, you won't be able to.
Can I add something?
Sure. Go ahead, James.
Asparagus.
Ooh.
I thought you usually like the tech talk. We're the ones that caused Steve head to explode.
Oh.
Asparagus.
We're moving on.
Actually, I will add one thing because I forgot to mention the initial description here. This does not require CoCo 3. This will actually run on a CoCo 1 and 2 32K of RAM. So you can actually use this on lower end, and if you do a lower number of keys, or lower number of bit length of the keys, as we were mentioning before, you actually could use this on a CoCo 1 and 2 or a Dragon. So. Now, this is rather interesting. Fabian Rodriguez posted this, and it's a strange cartridge for the CoCo. And I do remember seeing pictures of this years ago. I think this was unique to Quebec. I don't even know if this was sold in France. It's a French type thing. But it's a bit odd because, A, it's really, really rare if it's officially a Radio Shack cartridge. But if you look on the manual there, most of the time, if it mentioned the TRS-80 stuff, and the color computer in particular, it would actually have the little 3-color RGB logo. This does not. So it looks almost like a Model 1.3 style thing, but it's obviously a CoCo cartridge because none of the other TRS-80s had cartridges like this. So I'm not sure exactly. Was this something unique that Tandy or Intertan, probably in our case up in Canada, made specifically for the Quebec market? Like that's something that I don't think would have happened too often. Like Tandy really liked to bulk market stuff to as many stores as it could in different countries if it could. So they usually didn't try to do something this specialized. But like I said, like Fabian was asking about it too here in the general post on Facebook. And I do remember somebody posted a picture of this like 10, 20 years ago. I remember seeing it. And we kind of speculated exactly what it was then too. So I'm not sure what the exact story is behind it, but it's like people were asking about rare cartridges before. I think this would probably be one of the rarest if it is a real official sanctioned Tandy Radio Shack product. Anyway, there's a discussion going on about that. So if anybody else has any more information on it, feel free to go pop on there. So this is a bit of an update. Marco came on, and we mentioned in the news last week. He professionally manufactures these labels for all kinds of retro systems like C64s and Spectrums and BBC Micros and other TRS-80s and all kinds of stuff. So basically, he's actually got the equipment to do the full bubble style labeling. And now he had, at the time when he came into the CoCo market, he didn't know that Carlos was already kind of doing that on his own, had been for a few years. He actually sold them at the Fest and stuff, covering the standard replacement badges for like the CoCo, 1 and 2, or CoCo 1, the RAM size little thing in the right-hand side of the case. And then also the actual Radio Shack and Tandy versions of the labels for the CoCo 1, CoCo 2, CoCo 3, etc. So Marco doesn't want to really step on Carlos's toes, but he says, because he manufactures these so much and he's got all the special equipment for doing all this stuff, so he can do a lot of it in-house. So he doesn't have to like subcontract, so he can do it cheaper. Is that he will do custom ones. And here he just kind of threw up some random examples. Here's we had 8 meg Gimme X Color Computer 3, but with the Canadian British spelling of color, for example. And then any description is kind of a generic one. And then 16 meg Beast Color Computer 3 type thing. So if you want a custom version of one of these logos that looks like the real thing, he might be your man to do it, and probably do it at probably a cheaper cost than Carlos could do, because Carlos is basically trying to do the bulk style, from what I understand.
Yeah, but too bad he spelled color wrong.
Well, he spelled it right. It's just one breakaway country there that kind of split off and decided, well, we got to be different. So we're going to.
We've been rebels since the beginning, don't you know?
That's why we're number one.
Next up, Ken, you want to talk about this, and I'll just kind of play in the background here. I'll mute it.
Oh yeah, sure. So I got while I was at CoCoFEST, I picked up from some guy, I can't remember who it was, but some keyboard thing for the computer. So I thought I'd throw it into my CoCo 3 and see how it worked.
Yeah. So this is a by Connect, Computer Connect or Connect. What are you these days, Rick?
Computer Connect.
Okay, Computer
Connect.
Fun fact: you notice how he peeled the film up to take it off? Yeah. If you've ever spilt soda in your keyboard, when you do that, it will flip the springs past you over your shoulders, or maybe hit you in the face.
So basically, what he peeled off, there was the original membrane style electronics for the keyboard that has all the places where the registers that you hit a key. And Rick's replacement board is an actual one with real switches and an actual circuit board and a solid connector instead of Mylar.
Just a nice, beautiful, clicky keyboard. If you want a really nice feeling clicky keyboard for your CoCo 3 or CoCo 2.
And this uses your actual original keys on your keyboard, and the casing for it. Like it's
just replacing the board.
Yeah.
So, and no soldering required. So even Curtis could do it.
And there is a hidden feature on the CoCo 3. You can crank it down 3 to 6 turns so you can get easy clicky or kind of hard clicky. If you aren't a great typist, you might want it to be less sensitive. So you can play with that.
Yeah, and of course you have this extra switch, which I'll let Ken describe.
Okay, well, that actually switches it into a CoCo 2 mode, because anybody that owns a CoCo 2 and a CoCo 3 knows on the CoCo 3, the arrow keys are in a little diamond shape on the side. And in the CoCo 2, they're on opposite sides of the keyboard. And some of the games were designed for that. So as there's the CoCo 2 keyboard right there. So if you flip that switch, it makes the Alt and Control keys on the CoCo 3 the up and down arrows.
Yeah, which on certain games, that's pretty well a requirement.
Yeah.
Like for me, Sea Dragon is an example. I cannot play it on keyboard, and I played way better on keyboard than I do in joystick, and always have. But on the CoCo 3, I just can't, because I can't do the two-handed thing crammed together. They're not kind of needed.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a beautiful way to get that backwards compatibility without having to swap keyboards constantly. Now, Rick, you're talking about adding something so you can actually access that switch from when the keyboard's already installed in the CoCo. Because right now you have to literally take the cover off, flip the keyboard up, flip the switch, and then put it back. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there is a little handle I haven't quite perfected yet, so you can stick it in, twist it, put the keyboard in, and then there's a little nub under the left front that you can just slide back and forth. Right now it binds up excessively, so I'm still tweaking the concept, but it's going to work.
Yeah, so at that point, you don't need to take the cover off at all. Like you can
and
screw
you can
the cover
still
together.
just go through the slot with the screwdriver or a toothpick or whatever you got and flip the switch. It's
so it's accessible from the underside of the computer.
Yeah, there's vents right below it.
To reach inside, where I want to be able to just reach under the front of it and flip. So there's a gizmo coming to everyone. It's going to cost me 39 cents or whatever. Ooh.
Well, I'll save you the shipping. I'll just pick it up the next fest.
Yeah, well, as soon as I get them working properly. Right now, like I say, it works if you do it exactly right, and otherwise it binds up. So I need to do a little refining on my 3D print thing. It's at an angle, so it's not as simple as just sliding. You have to sort of. Anyway.
Yeah.
And one thing I do actually have to say that I have to give props to Tandy about. I have taken apart many, many, many keyboards on many different systems. And Tandy is the first one that actually made their spring for the spacebar a different color than the rest of the springs, rather than just a different size. So if you accidentally do knock over all your springs, you don't have to sit there and measure each one to figure out which is the bigger one for the spacebar. I'm looking at you, Commodore.
Right. They look identical. It's just one of them's a little harder to squish than the others.
Yep.
Yeah. Like the Apple has that on the reset key, for example.
Probably to make it easier for their technicians at the store to repair them for people that bring them in.
Yeah. Now, I will mention for those people who have had their CoCo 3s like since they were sold, that membrane does wear out. I've got 2 CoCo 3 keyboards here that have certain keys that are hit or miss whether they're doing it, because those little mylar contacts gradually wear out and doesn't make the contact, doesn't register the key. So this will fix those keyboards. Plus, it's actually switch based, so it's just a much better mechanical system to begin with, and will last pretty well forever, I would guess.
I do have to say it feels so much nicer.
Yeah. It's almost like getting an IBM 5150 keyboard in your CoCo, basically, with less keys to fiddle with. And you get the bonus of having to be able to switch the Alt Control to be up, down for compatibility with older CoCo 1 and 2 games.
Type M for the win.
I mainly wanted to just look like a CoCo keyboard still,
Yeah. And the CoCo keys, like on the CoCo 3, actually aren't bad.
Oh, they're great.
They're kind of spongy because of the mylar. It's not the keys problem or the springs problem. It's the mylar part that's the problem.
And they've got the great little force offset lever, so you can't smash the button by banging your fist on it. I mean, they really did a nice job. So keep it.
Yeah. So the real fault that thing had was that the mylar does wear out because it's just cheap plastic, basically.
As it does on all the systems that have that, which was very common back then.
So this way you get like, I know there's been replacement keyboards since '82, like when various companies in the States, HGL and a bunch of others, Smart Data, started making replacement keyboards for the chiclet keyboard. But then once the CoCo 2 later ones with the full travel keyboard like this, and then the deluxe CoCo ones that were sold as replacements in Radio Shack, and then the CoCo 3 itself, they actually had a decently designed keyboard. Though the thing was the cheap Mylar they used, and it was to keep costs down, let's be honest. What would it's meant to last maybe 10, 15 years, and then it starts to wear out, and then you start having problems. And you can even figure out like certain people, if they type certain keys more often than others, that's the part that wears out. So you can kind of tell. Usually it's arrow keys and break.
But I've got to say, I've got this hundreds of dollars DOS keyboard here, and the finish is worn off the top of the keys. A lot of them are shiny. Some of the things you're starting to see the structure underneath the surface, and my 40-year-old CoCo looks exactly like it was made.
I was just going to mention that, like even my Mac keyboard that I'm looking right now, like the E key, the R key, the A key, the S key, I can't even read. Like that stuff's completely rubbed off. My return key and some of the shift keys have actually got indentations from where my fingers hit it. Like these things aren't done as well. My CoCo keyboard is 30 years older than that, and it, like you said, it looks absolutely fine. So yeah, it was a well-made keyboard except for the actual contact part of it.
And the switch is hot doable here. You can switch it right in the middle of a game, and
yeah, you don't have to reboot anything. You just flip the switch, and if you want to go back to running something else, you just flip it right back again. So kudos to Rick on that. It's nice having a full switch system in there on the original CoCo keyboard. And the original CoCo keyboard, kudos to Tandy on that one, because it's a well-made keyboard. Those things do not rub off like they do on modern ones.
And they designed it in such a way this little trick works. So, and Mark Siegel can take credit for that. He actually mentioned he got to decide how the new keys were put in, and so the Alt and Control are similar to the up and down enough that a very simple switch.
Yeah, you just have to flip one bit on the PIA, right?
Well, you flip. It's a single pole switch to go from row 6 to row 3. Simple little thing, and it works great.
And here's Ken, of course, just rubbing it in that he's on. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Just need a CoCoFEST sign up in that chair beside you there to show off.
CoCoFEST this way.
Now, I did want to ask you something, Ken. This is something I had not planned until just now. You actually have a sponsor now.
Yes.
Do you want to explain how that happened?
Okay, well, actually, if you notice also at the same time, I have to give a shout out to 8 Bits in the Basement, also has the same sponsor as me. We're both sponsored now by PCB Way. So, run a little ad in the video. So, which if anybody doesn't know, PCB Way is they make custom circuit boards for people, and they also do CNC and 3D printing, and they can even assemble your circuit boards for you. So
if you want to be a hardware designer but don't want to have to handle the whole hassle of manufacturing and shipping,
or even if you look at some of the free online designs for circuit boards, you can get them printed up really cheap here. They'll do it $5 with a 24 to 48 hour turnaround.
There's probably a few people in our community that might benefit from their services, perhaps.
Absolutely.
Source.
Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe they can churn out some gimme X's.
Well, that's a chip shortage problem there, I think, is a big problem. That's nothing PCB Way can help you with. They couldn't get the chips either.
Okay, yeah, I guess you're right, yeah.
I mean, congratulations, Ken, on actually getting a sponsor. So that
thank you. I was quite excited about that.
So that's how you can afford to live in the cabin all summer, right?
Exactly.
Okay, next up, we have Alan Huffman, who's now started a new sub-series in his blogs here. This is going into color basic RAM hooks. This is part 1. So this one kind of explains how these work. And if you've read the Unraveled series, there's quite a lot of descriptions there. Basically, the RAM hooks were a way of designing BASIC so that it could be extensible. And Microsoft used this because you had color basic and you get some basic functions, and then you'd add extended basic, but it still has to be able to run color basic. So these RAM hooks are for certain things like outputting a character to whatever. So in color basic, for example, you do a print and you have the number sign and then, or hashtag or whatever they call it these days. And then you'd have a path number. So 0 was a screen, -1 was the cassette, -2 is the printer. And then in extended basic, they added an option for 3 for the deload command, and the disk basic added 1 to 15 for disk file buffers, etc. And they have a whole bunch of these things that you can hook into. So you can extend like a print command or an input command or various other things. So he goes into an explanation here, and he's referencing the code basic unraveled. You can see some that were actually defined to just do an RTS. They didn't do anything because any extra features were not being added till the next ROM revision. And third parties took advantage of this too, like ADOS extended and HTTP DOS, SDC DOS will use this kind of thing as well to kind of patch into BASIC so it becomes part of the BASIC language. So it goes into a pretty good technical detail explaining how it works. And some samples, of how different BASICs added certain things on if you added them on. And then here's a list of the RAM hooks that are available that were designed into Microsoft BASICs. You got like open command, which could be open device, disk file, cassette, whatever. Device number validity check, which means depending what level of BASIC you have, it'll return whether that's a legitimate one for that particular one, like color basic, like I mentioned before, only handles -2 to 0. Extended added in the -3, and then disk added in 1 to 15. And then set parameters, console in, console out. Input device number checks, close all files, close a single file. Print input, break key check, which actually the original CoCo's did not have. Oh, I should mention super extended basic CoCo 3 also had some of these too. And then I won't read them all out here, but there's a whole bunch of things that are handled now that you can extend on. And basically what you usually do is you grab whatever the original ROM did and you kind of save that address. Then you plug in your own place you want it to go to first to check your new stuff. And then if you go through your new stuff and go, oh, they wanted the original one, then you can just jump back to where that original address was. And you can keep layering this on with different ROM updates. So it was a nice design. They actually designed it to be extensible and without breaking software. So, but anyway, that's the beginning of his series on this. And he's going to start going in future articles to explain, how to add your own commands to BASIC and how to basically add in new paths if you wanted to, like maybe you want to add a drive wire specific path or something. You could do that kind of thing.
And you overwrite one of those to do your auto start.
Yeah, I think the
auto
reset
run your
or vector or whatever that is.
binary.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess you can do it directly through the reset vector, or you can do it through the I can't remember what the hook's called, but yeah. Okay, next up we got this is a bit of a different one, and I was hoping maybe Simon would pop by for this one because it's not too far from him, I don't believe. So MCH 2022 is a hacker festival for retro computers. And you can see they got this nice little light up of the little emoji thing. So this was Mike on YouTube. Retro Computing with Mike's the name of the channel. And it's a hackers festival in the Netherlands. And it features old computers I mentioned before. And it actually, he goes around showing some of the old computers kind of roughly in date order. And the CoCo 3 is actually one of the ones they mentioned. Now, they don't do any big demos or anything. It's basically just explain what the machine is. But I thought I'd play 2 little clips. I'll play a little bit of the CoCo 3 when he kind of explains the CoCo 3 very briefly. But I want to play this one little clip here because it kind of explains the ethos behind it. The fact that they build their own mini city to handle this thing, because there's 4,000 people showing up and it's just out in the field somewhere. This isn't in a convention center or anything. They actually bring tents and all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of an interesting take on doing a retro show I've never seen in North America before. So I'll play a little bit of the beginning here where he kind of explains this.
But in general, imagine 4,000 resourceful nerds, or hackers as they are truly called, meeting in a field where they build a small city with both power, water, internet, sewer systems, shops, food stalls, stages, and even a small supermarket. Most of this is done a couple of weeks in advance by the volunteers, and then the attendees show up, and most of them start by contributing, mostly by building their own villages, often containing shared facilities. The Finns brought a sauna for public use, and the Italians set up a small soup kitchen, serving free food. Of course, it was not soup, it was pasta. Italian pasta, of course, and lots of it. On festival, you go and hear your favorite band play their music. Not here. You go and hear really skilled hackers and other really smart people give lectures or workshops about their latest work or something else interesting. There's also music and drinking, because of course there is. Lots of people who like each other get together. Of course they'll be partying. Villages are often created by groups of friends, hackerspaces, other festivals or events in the community, or other organizations who share the same demographics. So to me, it was more of a happy coincidence than a surprise to see the Dutch Home Computer Museum at the camp. They had put up a satellite exhibition, which is so cool because I wanted to go there, but didn't really have the time during my current stay. Kenbag 1 is by some named as the first personal computer ever. It was produced in only 50 copies, of which only around 14 exist today. This is a replica. It is built without any kind of microprocessor, since it was not yet invented when this machine was designed in 1970. It's a pure TTL-based computer with no display or keyboard. It was used for educational purposes only, and the switches and the lights on the front of the cabinet were its only method of input and output.
Now, we've mentioned the Home Computer Museum and actually shown some clips that they've taken from there, and it looks like a really cool place that I'd love to check out, next time I get to go to Europe type thing. Anyway, I'll fast forward a little bit to the CoCo part. There we are, right after the Osborne.
People to see it. Tandy Color Computer 3, announced in 1986, would be the last member of the well-known Tandy Color Computer trilogy. It was an 8-bit system, but could be expanded with up to 512 kilobytes of memory. I do plan to make a couple of videos about the Tandy Color Computer. I do not have them in my collection, but I have borrowed a few that I plan to use for that video.
Anyway, so it just kind of goes around the table that the Computer Museum put up there as part of this hacker show. And going from stuff like 1970, which is before the 4004 came out, type thing, that analog computer they mentioned. Then they go through some other ones that are a bit more recent. They kind of go in roughly chronological order there, but they got a few like the Lisa and the Osborne and etc. So it's a pretty interesting video. It looks like a really interesting show. I've never seen a retro computer show that actually just sets up in the field with tents. Bring your own sauna type thing. I think that's just fascinating. So that's on my bucket list now, is to attend one of these suckers. That just looks like a fun time. Next up, and since we've got permission from Pedro to play his videos in their entirety, especially when they're only a minute 20 long, this is his 64K static RAM board. Now, I'm trying to remember the details, but I believe Brendan Donaghy's SAM doubler requires a static RAM or much faster dynamic RAM to run full double speed on a CoCo 1 or 2. Like this is the equivalent of the 65497 poke in the CoCo 3 with RAM and ROM speeds up. So I will let him describe this because he obviously knows way more about this kind of stuff than I do.
Find these boards in the mail. What this is a static RAM board for the CoCo 2, specifically 26-3134 model. I'm going to be testing this one on a Model A, but it should work on the Model B as well. When I get one of those, I'll test it. It's not too hard to use. It should just plug into the memory port that's on there. As you can see, there's not much to it. There's a static RAM chip, a latch, and only using one of the OR gates, so this quad OR gate chip there. Yeah, so let's plug it in real fast. Here's the CoCo 2. I'm going to turn it on so you can see that there is no memory, so we'll get that orange screen. Turn it off. I'm going to plug this in and make sure it's in the right orientation.
These are the CoCos that had the 2-chip upgrade option.
I think that's in. Yeah, let's turn it on. Green screen, extended color basic. And let's check the RAM. There you go. And shortly what I'll do today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, I'll put the design for this up on GitHub so that everyone can have it and copy it. Very happy.
So that's a pretty cool project. I didn't even know he was doing that. And like I said, I think that'll work with the SAM doubler.
Yeah, static RAM splits the clock cycle when you access memory into a column address strobe and then a row address strobe. And he's capturing the address lines, or data, I should say, with the latch for the probably the top address lines, and then using that combined with the next strobe to deliver the data. It's a pretty simple circuit.
Yeah, and I mean, all the 2 meg upgrade boards or higher for the CoCo use static RAMs now too, from every one of the manufacturers that does them. So obviously that's the way to go. And you don't have this RAM refresh stuff you have to do like Dynamic RAM has. So that's why the Gimme X is able to get its 2.86 megahertz mode. I think that's how Brennan's SAM doubler also works, because basically that whole cycle of having to take cycle away from the CPU to just refresh the RAM is gone, right?
I actually did a lot of reading on this so that I could hook static RAM to the 6803, and it does a refresh with the column address strobe, apparently. So if you wire it right, like in the case of the Apple II, you don't need a refresh cycle. It's automatically done with the access. The main thing is you have to access all the columns on a regular basis, or it will lose part of its memory. So, yeah, it's
okay. Because Karen's saying, you can just latch 8 bits on RAS fall. You don't have to bother for column. Just pass the lines through.
Yep.
And then Pedro himself has said that the RAS and CAS are ORed as a chip enable.
Okay.
Which I don't even understand what any of this means, because I'm not very I'll let you guys talk about it later.
You could do the same circuit for any CoCo 1 or CoCo 2. I'm guessing you could do it with a board that plugs off the SAM and then just remove all the old RAM chips.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what Brennan's upgrade does. And I know, like Ed Snyder's Gimme X actually specifically says to run the 2.86 megahertz mode, you cannot use dynamic RAMs. You have to use static RAMs.
Right. Right.
So, hey, cool. Thanks for releasing that there, Pedro.
But that's the neat. Yeah, the neat thing about that is you can run the POC 65497.0 mode on a CoCo 1 or 2.
Yep, and it actually runs at full double speed RAM and ROM, so you can speed up your own base or machine language programs.
Your screen will still go wacky.
Well, the SAM doubler does not, from what I understand.
It probably squeezes in extra cycles somewhere.
Yeah, that's Brendan's technical details, but I think that was one of the selling points of it, is that you get screen working just fine.
No, you need the CoCo VGA for it to work.
Oh, okay. So that's how you got around it. Okay. You actually have one of those SAM doublers, Dave?
Yes, I do. And Ron Klein and I found one particular piece of hardware that does not like the device.
What's that?
Real floppy drive controllers.
Your lifeblood. You can't have
that. Does it mess up the clocks a little bit there?
What was that?
I said, does it mess up the clocks a little bit for the close
No,
timing on the controller?
No, when I say it doesn't work at all, I mean it doesn't work at all, even when you're at normal speed.
Right.
Oh, okay. Is that the halt line or something you were about to say?
I bet, yeah, there's got to be one of the lines that is messed up by it, but oh well.
Because the floppy is just going to stop you anytime it wants. So that might not be very good for you.
Does it work with the CoCo SDC, David, or any simulation?
Yeah, the SDC works fine.
Oh, so that's not as major of a problem, because most people are.
No, it's just real floppy drive controllers don't appear to work with it at all.
Okay. Good to know. I did not know any of that, so I don't have I have a SAM doubler. I do have a CoCo VGA though.
Well, I didn't know it until Ron contacted me, and then I did my own testing, which I'm like, well, crap. The whole reason I got this thing was so I could do the high density controller stuff.
Of course you did, David.
Well, yeah, I did.
The world has been saved.
Next up, Alderson Retro Computing did a brief video here comparing CoCo 3 Extended Basic versus Raspberry. Hopefully you guys know what this is. Raspberry Pi Pico MM Basic, which is also a Microsoft Basic, just doing a simple Hello World program. I think just to roughly compare the syntax between the two, which is basically the same thing. Now, I did notice when he was running, he had some quirkiness I saw on the Pi version, so I'm not sure if it's exactly the same basic syntax that the Microsoft Basic on the CoCo 3 uses. I mean, it's just basically doing a Hello World style thing. So he just does that. And then on the Pico, it's kind of hard to see this little thing that he does the print hello in this. And I'm not familiar with this Pico basic. I don't know if any of you guys are. So I don't know what exactly this comparison is supposed to do, except that it's running print hello. Next up here, Richard Kelly just this morning put an update for his Easy Directory program, which we covered a few weeks back in the CoCo Facebook group, and you can download it there. And it's basically a program launcher, kind of a little bit similar in a simplified way to the STC Explorer, except it's written completely in BASIC. And it will launch some machine language programs. It will launch basic programs. It's not perfect. And he said this is probably about as far and as fast as you can take this in pure BASIC. After that, you have to do some manual subroutines, which is what the STC Explorer does. It's a bit of a simpler interface, and here's a bit of a screenshot. So basically, you get those little selection arrows to pick whichever program you want to run, type thing. So if you want to see, it comes with obviously the source code and etc. for it, so you can take a look at it if you want to. Oh yeah, this last one was a bit of a surprise to me, and hopefully for the Dragon people that are still in the chat, like Kieran, hopefully they have not seen it. They'll be surprised them too, because I'd love to get the reaction to it. So there's a podcast that I've never seen before, but it features some famous Hollywood actors here from Lord of the Rings, seated in the actual chairs. And that's Billy Boyd, who played Pippin, and Dominic Monaghan, who played Merry. And they had the LGR, Clint Bassinger, in to talk about retro gaming in general, and also his reviews of retro games and his channel, etc. Type of thing. And it's a pretty good interview. It's about an hour. They also have their own bits that they normally do. And then this is a regular podcast they do, so they interview all kinds of people. So it was interesting to have them just talking about retro in general. They're talking about refurbishing arcade machines and what arcade machines they liked back in the day when they were young, what home video game consoles, home computers, etc. But then came a bit of a surprise, probably about 2/3 of the way through the interview. So I'll play that little bit here. But the whole podcast is actually pretty fascinating. I've never even heard the podcast before this, so hopefully YouTube doesn't stick a bunch of crappy ads in here.
Yeah, it kind of it started that way, and then it sort of grew out of control, and now I'm surrounded by it everywhere. It really began with just remembering these things from childhood, seeing them at friends' houses, cousins' houses, and playing them there, but never really having much at home. And then seeing things in stores, and always I was just out of reach, and it could maybe afford a couple of games a year for the PC primarily. I grew up as a computer gamer, but as I got a little older and started making my own money, and occasionally I would find old computers at thrift stores primarily, and the games to go along with them. And that was back when they were still more affordable. You could get a computer for a couple of bucks as opposed to hundreds now. So the retro scene has really exploded, but thankfully I got into it before it did any of that. And now, it's turned into a career talking about them.
Well, yeah, because I'm looking at your channel and it's huge. It shows you the interest that people really want to watch this stuff and learn about it. I will give you 1,000 points, which is quite a lot of points in this game.
Oh, yeah.
1,000 points if you have my first computer, and 500 points if you even know what it is. Clint, my first computer was called a Dragon 32.
Yes, I actually have a one that they released it here as the Tano Dragon, and it's the same thing. Nice kind of beigey cream case with black keys, and starts up with a sort of a green background and everything for where you could type in to load programs and such. Yeah, here it was the Tano Dragon. It was a Welsh computer, if I recall. So
Welsh computer,
1,000 points.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
I remember
not too many Welsh PCs out there.
No, and there's a store in the UK called Boots, and it's sort of like a CVS,
Is it Boots the Chemist, I believe?
Boots the Chemist, exactly.
Yeah.
And Boots the Chemist sold the Dragon 32. It was the weirdest. Do you remember at that time, there was always a choice to be made. You get a VHS or you get a Betamax. And then whatever one you chose, the other one, you either chose the right one or the wrong one, but one of them was going to disappear. And all my friends got the ZX 80 or 81, and I got the Dragon 32, and the Dragon 32 disappeared, and there was no games.
Never heard of it.
Nothing. I know. No one had. I'm really shocked that you've heard of that, Clint.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That came and went.
It was a very brief moment in time that it was even advertised at all. And then what is a fascinating story with that. So the US distributor for them ended up with this massive shipment because Dragon went out of business and everything. And then there were just tons of them on pallets. And they ended up in a warehouse for 25, 30 years. And there were just unsold, brand new in-box Dragons sitting in a warehouse in California up until around 2012 or so. And they finally started selling them, and I ended up getting one of those new in box, and that's how I got my Dragon. Was the old stock that just never sold.
Billy, you should get one.
Like you
See if
said.
you can get one.
Glenn, as I said, it's my birthday coming up on the 28th of August.
Dragon 32.
28th of August, by the way, is when we are doing a live Friendship Onion in Toronto. On my birthday. If Clint arrived from North Carolina to Toronto with a Dragon 32
Wouldn't that
on
be
his back.
amazing? Was it, Clint, if you don't mind me saying, was it an expensive system to
I
buy?
won't listen to this part.
Earmuffs, William.
Anyway, I'll let you
It
guys.
was actually extremely cheap back then because
I'll let you guys finish watching that on your own there. But I thought that was kind of fascinating to see some Hollywood actors, and one actually had a Dragon 32 as his first computer growing up. So
That's way cool. Billy Boyd's awesome. He can sing too. He's put out some CDs. Good singer.
yeah. Now, one thing for our Dragon people in the audience, and Kieran in particular, since he actually has XWR Online, because Billy does sound pretty nostalgic about this machine. I was wondering maybe, Kieran, if you can maybe pop into this particular YouTube video here and maybe leave some comments with XWR Online with some sample games that he might remember from the past. And if that goes really, really well, maybe we can have him pop on the show with some of the Dragon people. That would be pretty awesome. So I suggest that maybe you should leave a comment and a link to the XWR Online with some sample games, etc., for him to try and see what they say. And that's the end of the news for this week.
Not yet. You forgot the most important thing. Shame on you.
Well, if you're talking about something that you're involved with, that's not that important. But go ahead.
No. I just want to bring everybody's attention to Jim Brain's post on the GlensideCCC.com's website. I don't know if everybody was aware, but last weekend, myself, Jim, and also Tony Perdaza, we all went to Chicago and looked at more hotels than we care to look at ever again. So just let everybody know, I guess we probably will not be returning to the Elk Grove location because they quoted us a pretty high price to stay there for 2023. And also, to be honest, too, from the survey we did last month, a lot of people did not like the hotel portion of the Elk Grove location. So, so Jim and Tony and I went to, I want to say six or seven different locations. But Jim made a post on there about all the different locations that we looked at. It goes in quite a great detail too. But we pretty much have narrowed it down to a couple venues. And then hopefully this time next week, I will be able to make the announcement, is my goal anyway. So, but I will take everybody's time on this, but just go to Glenside CCC's website and look at Jim's post there, and it'll give you all the details that you probably would ever care to know about this procedure and what we're going through. So back to you, Curtis.
Sorry, just typing in a message to 60 in the chat there. So, yeah, so it's a good thing that you guys are doing that checking, because I think the price increase they were quoting was like over double or triple or something. Like it was.
Oh yeah, it was ridiculous, and we're not the only ones that are going through it, because as I've been talking to other hotels, they're also getting other groups from the Elk Grove location who are getting the same treatment that we did with the astronomical price that they were asking for. So I think, and I've talked to some other people, that they are getting away from the convention events and want to do strictly just weddings, because it's, you're in and out in a day. You can do 3 of them, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and make a higher profit off of it. So I think that's what's going on with that location. But and also too, just Jim is also looking for feedback too from the community in that on that post. So definitely make sure you give your feedback to Jim. Right now, the one that we're kind of leaning to is the Holiday Inn in Carroll Stream. It's a little bit smaller than the Elk Grove location, but it's not in an industrial park area either. So it's going to be in a really nice location with restaurants, gas stations, and shops and stuff all within the area. Curtis's favorite thing, since he doesn't like Portillo's anymore, since they made him wait for half an hour. It does have a it does have a restaurant there on site. Unfortunately, they don't serve lunch, so you're going to have to go with us to Portillo's for lunch there, Curtis.
I'm sure there's a McDonald's nearby. I can go instead, where I can get service in less than a day.
So, but no, hopefully, I mean, it's a nicer location. It is recently been renovated, so it's a newer location. It's not a newer location, but it's a newer style looking. So,
and it's bigger as far as show space goes. It's bigger than Heron Point is, right?
It is bigger than Heron Point, but smaller than Elk Grove. So it's going to be kind of in between. I believe it's 3,800 square feet in the ballroom, and then I think the presentation rooms was like 600 and something square feet. So we may have 2 rooms. We may do with 1 room. As I was telling Curtis last night, auction items are coming harder and harder to come by. So I don't think we're going to need a second room to house all the auction items as it's getting harder and harder to come by. And just like we were talking last night, Curtis, that if you have a CoCo 3, you'll probably want to put it onto eBay more than it is to donate to the club, because you can get $350 for it. So, but
yeah, now it's an investment, not just a
exactly. Right. So hopefully I will have more information this time next week, if not the week after. And also just let you know too, that for the Holiday Inn in Carroll Stream, the same date that we've been talking about, the April 21st and 22nd, I believe it was, or whatever weekend that is still in place. So.
Yeah, because you had mentioned, like, one of the other ones that Jim had mentioned was going to be available, I think, the end of March. And like, for myself personally, and this is just me being egotistical, et cetera, like my job, especially now that it's starting to pick up to normal levels again, that's middle of baseball season. I would not be able to make it.
Well, and plus also going to Chicago in March.
It's a bit risky. Yeah, you might be driving through snow. For those who are not used to it, that might be a bit of a problem.
And just so everybody knows, that's the location we're talking about for that one is the same location as VCF Midwest. We did talk to them. So basically on that location is that we have to spend $10,000 for the location, because they're not going to be able to rent the location to anybody else, because we'll have the whole run of the venue. So they do some strange things, like, we can give you the ballroom cheaper, but we may have to increase the hotel rooms. So instead of paying $119 a night, people might have to spend $150 a night, just for example, or charge more for food and drink. So I don't think that's going to be a likely candidate. And the other thing too is, we don't sell enough hotel rooms, then the club is going to be on the hook for those unsold hotel rooms on top of that. So it's that was kind of a risky.
If the show keeps getting bigger and bigger, maybe in the future that might be an option. But for now, especially we're just coming back off COVID, I don't
exactly. So we're kind of thinking we'll just go to the kind of like in between, between the Elk Grove size and the Heron Point size. And then, we'll give this a try. If it works out, then we'll book it, for the next couple of years. I mean, these people are super nice. They're going way out of their way to accommodate us. A nice thing too. So this location is at the exact same exit at Heron Point. So instead of making a turn to the east, you're going to make a turn to the west. So it's on the same road. So as the Heron Point location. So
so anybody who's been to the Heron Point one for the previous CoCoFEST there will kind of know the route already.
Exactly. And also it's going to be closer to Fire and Wines. So it's really down the street from this new venue, if we decide.
Yeah, and be honest, I know the restaurant that's on site there, which is a burger place where you basically make custom burgers. I think they advertise like 1,400 different combos of toppings you can get. It reminds me of a Fuddruckers type thing where you custom make your own toppings. You have the whole thing. So it sounds like it's more of a gourmet burger style place, but I do like trying those out.
Yeah. So we'll definitely have to try that out, hopefully. So I will hopefully have everything ironed out here next week, if not the weekend after. And I'll make the announcement here and also with the other podcast as well.
Yeah. Also, Jim's actually in the chat now, and he mentioned that's 3,800 square feet. I don't remember what Heron Point was
I think it was 2,100 square feet. So.
And Elk Ridge was what, 4,000 or 4,500?
It was a little over 4,000. Yes.
So that's pretty close to last year's location here.
The
That's not too
conference
far.
room looks identical. The link on the internet.
Yeah, it's
It
very
looks
it's very similar.
Yeah. Now the other one that you guys were talking about, the one that I believe VCF uses, which is a lot larger venue. I think that was like 6,000 or something, wasn't it?
Oh, I think it's even more than that. I think it's like 60,000. It was it's crazy. It's a crazy amount. We would never use it. I think it was 2,100 square feet. So.
And Elk Ridge was what, 4,000 or 40,000?
Getting echo. Oh, here comes Jim.
That's pretty close to last year's location here.
The
That's not too
conference
far.
room looks identical.
Oh, Jim, I think
you're echoing back what we talked about 15 seconds ago. Now, the other one that you guys were talking about, the one that I believe VCF uses, which is a lot larger venue. I think that was like 6,000.
See, this is what happens when we have a Commodore guy, in charge here. I'll give a second here for Jim to figure that out. So I think he just.
Sorry.
Oh, there he goes. There he goes, Jim. I'll give you the floor, sir.
No, that's okay. You guys sometimes ask me questions and chat is so delayed. So I thought I'd just come on in case you had a question you needed to ask or wanted some sort of additional detail.
I guess I haven't had a chance to look too much of the hotel for that one that, kind of seems to be the favored one at this point, but it sounds like it's been renovated recently. So it should be pretty decent as far as connections and cleanliness, etc.
Yep, exactly. So
They have elevators that don't light on fire too, I presume.
No, but I don't think that's going to be a problem with this one.
I don't get
stuck between floors.
It depends on how hard you guys are on the elevators. It's you. I don't think it's the venue.
No
comment.
I did hear from Grant that it sounds like coffee's gotten expensive at every hotel, so I'm going to have to run to the gas station to get coffee. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, because coffee I think is still like $32 a gallon, even at this other venue. So
one thing we kind of talked about last night, after the game on challenge part was done, was that you can get those big, coffee.
From Dunkin' Donuts.
The ones that you use like at church functions and stuff, where you so much coffee type thing. Like, is that something we could bring our own coffee? And was that something they would object to, and just somebody brings one of those big pots, or we rent one or something?
I would say you would need to keep it in your room.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think we can. I mean, we haven't yet worked with this group, so I don't know how much of a stickler they are, but I wouldn't want to kind of flaunt it right at the very beginning.
Okay, no, I just didn't know if they had a policy already in place, like that. No,
They
you have to
do.
use our own stuff. Okay.
Yeah, most of these venues, I think Heron Point was pretty unique in that regard. Most venues are going to have no kind of sanctioned food and drink being brought in because they do want that overpriced coffee. They want that money, right?
Center.
That's right.
Heron Point didn't seem to have anything like that, so of course.
Well, yeah, they did. I mean, they did have an option. Tony told me that they did quote him, but again, I think Heron Point was kind of a unique thing. They didn't necessarily want to do it. They was more like, if you have a conference and you're expecting us to do it, we can offer that feature. But when they said no, we just don't want it. And of course, the only guy that was over there at the time was the security guy, and he doesn't care, right? All he wants to make sure is we're not going to steal any of the stuff at Heron Point. So he's not going to pay attention to any of that. I don't think they really paid any attention to it. But actually, Elk Grove Village wasn't, at least for the couple years that VCF was there, and the first time we were there. They didn't seem overly problematic because, like, my daughter comes and she brings brownies and stuff like that, and they didn't come in and complain about that or whatnot. But I think if we would have not purchased like the cupcakes through them or not wanted to do the catered dinner through them, then they probably would have balked. So I guess it's just shades of gray, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you was to bring in a huge coffee maker and set it up on a table, I think they would probably say something. So I would say if you want to do that, Curtis, bring it in.
I just wondered if there's a possibility that, like, I didn't know what the policy was.
Yeah, just set it up in your hotel room and then just run back to your hotel room and get a refill of coffee because
set it up in your car and just have people coming out to the car to
exactly
get the block market coffee.
I'll charge them. That's good.
But I will be
slide up to the driver's side window, hand you some money, hand him a cup.
I'll buy a coffee ticket.
So we'll work it out. I mean, we're definitely going to put a cap on it though this year because I don't think Jim wants to have a heart attack on a $1,000 coffee bill again. So
I think $1,000 coffee bill is. I mean, you're right. If Rick, if we said, hey, we're gonna do like little tickets like they do at a wedding, right? And you can buy a coffee ticket and it's so much money or whatnot, and we ended up with enough money to cover $1,000 worth of coffee and tea and hot cocoa, sure. But man, that $1,000, that was the first time I've truly been shocked about a beverage in the last 20 years. So,
and another little thing too that they did tell me is that in the lobby they do serve free coffee from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. So might use that, and then after 10 o'clock we might add a couple, coffees.
After they see how much some of us drink, though, I think they'll start charging for that too.
So Jim, do you want to talk to them about the other locations that we went to? Like
well, I mean, O'Hare's was a little smaller yet. It was about 3,100 square feet. The problem with it is the room has a very low ceiling. It's like a 8-foot ceiling, and that makes the space look smaller. And it's obviously smaller yet than the Carroll Stream location, which was almost 4,000 square feet. And then the other one was their additional rooms for like a presentation or whatnot were on a different floor. So you would need to go to a different floor in order to attend those. Whereas at the Carroll Stream location, just like at the Elk Grove and the Heron Point locations, it was just a hallway, walk away and very short, maybe, 10, 15 steps. So I worry about supporting the presenters at the O'Hare location, the Holiday Inn O'Hare location, just because I'm worried that a lot of people are going to say, I'm not sure if I'm going to like the presentation, and so I don't want to go to all the effort to leave the exhibit hall and go over and try to navigate my way. And it wasn't just you went to the elevator, you went upstairs, and the rooms were just like right outside the elevator. You had to get out of the elevator and then essentially walk down, I don't know, maybe 50, 100 feet down to the end of the kind of hotel space in order to get to these two rooms. They were nice rooms, I will say that, but that was a challenge. And then the other location I really feel bad about, which is the Hoffman Estates Holiday Inn. It was a beautiful location. It looks brand new. I don't know how many people have a crossover between retro computers and outdoor activities, but it's literally like right outside the parking lot for Cabela's on the west side of Chicago. And they had a nice venue, but it's 2,000 square feet. That is the only room they have. And so there's really nowhere for presentations. And of course, 2,000 square feet is less. You were asking earlier about Heron Point. So Heron Point was about 2,100 square foot in the main kind of exhibit hall, and then the area where we normally did presentations is about 1,700 square feet. So in total, it was 3,700, but of course it was broken up over 2 rooms. So 2,000 square feet. We probably haven't fit in 2,000 square feet for both presentations and exhibits for probably 5 years or so. And so I think that would be unrealistic. But there, like I mentioned in the post, there may be an opportunity for us to do something else, right? That's not our main show, or just some of us together. Like this show is kind of a outgrowth of a bunch of people who wanted to chat about going to CoCoFEST. There may be some smaller group of us that wants to put on something for which that particular venue would be ideal. And it sounded to me like, Grant did most of the negotiation or discussions with the lady, but it sounds like she is super excited to book something into that space, probably because it's brand new and they're looking to leverage the space.
And then you might want to explain a little bit more about the Clarion, the BCF location a little bit better.
Yeah, Clarion, and my wife and I stayed in the Marriott Schaumburg, which is a beautiful location as well. That was where we stayed since it was one of the hotels we were looking at. Those both are, they're ritzier locations. Probably Clarion is it's maybe not as ritzy as the Marriott Schaumburg. Marriott Schaumburg just had a $22 million overhaul, and it's everything you think of when you think of like a big wedding, right? The chandeliers, the 20-some foot ceilings, and the main venue space, I think, was just shy of 9,000 square feet. The nice part about the Schaumburg one is that you can cut it up into, with the walls that they use the insulated movable walls, you can you can chop that space up into a many different configurations, and some of those configurations would fit for us. But the Clarion, for those folks who have been to VCF Midwest, it's a huge, it's a humongous space, by far the largest of the spaces that we went and looked at. But it is, the main hall is, when it's got all the air walls pushed back, it's 12,000 square feet. And like Grant had indicated, they're not willing to. He didn't feel comfortable. The venue coordinator, he didn't feel comfortable renting it out to two dissimilar types of groups on the same weekend. So essentially, you're paying for the whole venue whether you use it or not. And I'll be honest, my concern with both venues, I know I put them in as options, and we could pursue them. And I think maybe the Schaumburg one would come in, maybe more palatable, because I think we might be able to get that venue a little bit less expensive than the 10 grand that it's going to cost for Clarion. But the main challenge I see with those is, and I know some people even notice this with the Elk Grove Village location, if you don't comfortably fill a location, then you can create this perception that whatever it is that you're holding is shrinking or becoming less well attended. And it has nothing to do with how many people show up. It's just the fact that the space overwhelms what you're putting in the space. And so I worry that
psychological thing.
That's right. And so
works the same way when it's too full also.
That's right. That is right. It's either way. So it's problematic because, you don't want to have a space that's significantly smaller than what you need, because then everybody says, well, I don't have fun because I bumped into everybody all day long and there was nowhere to move around and all that. Conversely, I don't think you want a space that's too much larger than what the club can consume, for fear people will say, well, I don't know, it looks like it's on its way out, when in fact it was well attended and there were a lot of exhibits, but you're only using a quarter of the space that you are. And even if we were to shut the air walls off and whatnot, I worry that just the space just looks huge. And then when you go in, it looks like you're like a little nothing in a corner of some big other empty space.
Personally, I'd rather have too much space than too little. I hate it when it's crowded.
I agree. And
big room,
yeah. I mean, to be fair, we definitely don't want to. We don't want people to be packed in like sardines. But like I said, we use. Realistically, of the 4,500 square feet that was in the main hall of Elk Grove Village, we probably used 3/4 of that. So, a little under 3,000 square feet. And our layout was pretty comfortable. When VCF Midwest was there, they managed to put in a few more tables than that. But so I think even at 3,800 square feet, you have plenty of room and plenty of room to grow. You get up into the, like, let's say you get, for instance, if you do the Clarion location, there's really no way to subdivide it down below 6,000, right? You could put yourself in 3,000 square feet, but then you are a little crowded. And then if you go to the two of the 3,000 square feet chunks, then you're at 6,000 square feet, and I believe it'll dwarf us. Plus that huge foyer, which is probably 8,000 square feet, in the hallway, which is another 2,000 to 3,000 square feet just by itself. So, it's nice. The other one is, realistically, I think we need to be, somewhat realistic on how big is CoCoFEST gonna get, right? Because Clarion's nice, and we could set up a huge, long-term investment in that, like VCF has. But I think, in order to make the finances work, you really need to be on a track to fill that location in some, within a decade or something like that. I don't know. I don't want to short sell the CoCo community, but 12,000 square feet is a lot of space to fill and a lot of space to sell.
Yeah, I think that's when we'd have to wait and see and just kind of see what the trend is the next couple of years. And then if it looks like it's continuously going up, then maybe you might think about it. Right now, it's way too oversized for us.
And that's probably what I'm going to, I know Jason Timmons has, he introduced us to the Clarion Inn, venue coordinator, and the venue coordinator talked to us in person last week. And, he kind of laid it out. It was very nice that he laid it out very transparently. And, what he needs in order to make this work, and how we might be able to accomplish that. And he was very helpful. But I do think, if we can make the Carroll Stream location financially work for us, because I think the venue is fine. But if we can make it financially work for us, what we may go back and tell the venue coordinator and Jason to say, listen, we need to grow a little bit before we can consume
Commit
that
to something of
space.
that size.
Yeah. And then
there's a bit of everyone's assuming that the current surge is the new normal, and it's really just 2 years of pent up demand. And so maybe a year or two from now,
right,
it changes again.
That's true, and very much so, because my son, whom some of you know, Brent, he's married. His wife actually works for a set of Marriott properties, and there has been guidance that was delivered to hoteliers earlier in the year saying, listen, everybody wants to get back into hotels, so now you can, because there's going to be pent up demand, you can increase your pricing considerably, and so that that's what we're seeing, right? They're seeing people following that guidance. My concern is, and I think I mentioned this in the CoCo mailing list in response to Alan Huffman's comment. I said, what I worry is that, we're going to go to all this effort, right? Grants went to all the effort to communicate with these folks. We're going to, we went and did a physical, view of the various locations. We'll pick a location, we'll sign a contract. We'll figure out how to make this work from a financial standpoint. And then later in the year, when, especially the Elk Grove location, which was astronomically more expensive than nearly all of the other venues that we look at, is going to find themselves with nobody's going to want to take up their product at that price. And I worry they're going to come back like late in the year and say, we'll make you a really good deal. We'll give you the venue next year for $1,000 or something like that. Well, that'd be a great deal, except we've already signed a contract with another venue. And to be honest, I negotiate, hundreds or, $250,000 deals on a regular basis. And I kind of have a hang up about somebody going after and saying, oh no, we're going to charge you $4.50 a square foot to be here. And then when they don't get any takers on that, then all of a sudden they come back later and they say, well, we'll make you a deal for 10 cents on the 10 cents on the dollar for a venue. Do you really want to have a long-term
Right.
business relationship with somebody who does that, right?
Yeah.
That gets kind of dirty. It's dirty business, and I'm not sure I'm real comfortable with doing that. Obviously, if the club feels okay with it, then that's one thing, but I'm not a huge fan of that, I'll be honest.
Well, plus, as you mentioned, and Grant mentioned too, I mean, there was a fair number of complaints about the rooms themselves, never mind the venue. So you've got double hits against them there. So
yeah,
and elevators lighting on fire was not a positive.
They should recognize that their product was in shambles and they need to take a couple of years to get it back up to snuff, and they didn't. So too bad.
I would counter that a little bit. I do agree and acknowledge that the hotel rooms had challenges. As we know, the leadership changed, or the management changed 2 weeks prior to the show. And I think a lot of that, it's the same with businesses. When larger companies buy a business from a private equity firm or whatever, they rack and stack all the issues so they can just, get it out the door, right? And so I'm pretty sure that if they were starting this conversation with this other management group 6 months ago, the previous management of the venue probably said, I don't want to make any big investments to fix anything because we're selling it anyway. So just patch it up.
Leave it up to the new owners to handle.
That's right. And
just
let
everything
those new owners deal with it. What are they going to do? Back out of
the November Fest? There was a wall of drywall mud buckets, but no other construction material. They were just slapping mud over everything and putting wallpaper over the top of the mud and calling it a day.
But I mean, I'm willing to say, okay, well, we'll see if that improves as the new leadership gets, their hands dirty with getting the venue back in operation. But just the cost, you were asking how many times. It was 10 times. 10 times. Right. The new cost was 10 times the previous one. So and it was stupid stuff too. Like the actual number we got was more like 15 times. And what I realized very quickly is that previously we had not paid for Friday move-in, right? We had a deal where it was like right of first refusal. If they didn't sell the Friday venue, or they didn't sell the venue on Friday, then we got access to it all day on Friday to do,
Table
club
setups,
needs
etc.
yeah, table setup and all that. And then everybody came in at 5 o'clock on Friday or whatever, and they set up, and we didn't actually pay for that. We just paid for Saturday and Sunday. Well, when they sent the new contract, they charged us for the entire room for Friday, right? Both rooms actually for Friday. And I'm like, no, we're not going to, I mean, we wouldn't do that, right? If somebody else rented that room out on Friday, then we would just send a note out to everybody and say, hey, we don't know that it's worth it to pay for the room on Friday night. So we're going to set up earlier on Saturday, right? We'll open the room at 6 o'clock in the morning, and everybody get their rear down there and set your stuff up, and we'll start the show at 10 or something like that. So we wouldn't buy the entire room at that inflated price for all of Friday just for setup.
Yeah. That's a nice goodwill thing too, because if they don't have the room rented, then, that encourages you to come back because they're easy to work with.
It does. Like I said, the previous leadership, the management that worked with Jason and worked with us at least in November and for the 2022 show, I think they were fine. They, it was good give and take. The new management, like I said, Grant and I first looked at the quote and we were just like, oh, they must have added a bunch of zeros in here and
yeah, it was a mistake. They screwed up their spreadsheet or something.
Can you go back and check on that? And then it wasn't. That was actually the quote that they have. So, and the venue, to Grant's point, maybe not to belabor it, but the current venue, the Elk Grove venue, it looks pretty lived in, and the Carroll Stream location is beautiful. I mean, you saw the pictures, and obviously seeing it in person, it's just really nice. And so to try to charge 5-6 times what another venue like that is charging and not look anywhere near as nice, and the hotel rooms either, it just doesn't make any sense. And I know they promised that, like, well, we're going to make this huge renovation, but we're committing to the rooms as they exist today. I can't commit to rooms as you think they might be in 12 months, right? Because what if you don't get that renovation done? Then what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I end up paying a premium for what I previously paid a pittance for.
Yeah. Okay, I don't have any more questions. It sounds like you guys kind of like really scoped out things and kind of figured out what is doable, what is not, and what is affordable, what is not. The coffee part's disappointing, but that's beyond your control.
We'll work that out. We'll work it out.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a station right next door, I mean, and if they have free coffee in the lobby at the beginning, that's enough to get me started in the day. I can run up to my room and get the next 2 cups of the little one in the room there at lunchtime or something if I have to.
Yeah, and like I said, again, this location for this venue is not in an industrial area like the Elk Grove. I mean, it's in a very nice area with stores and restaurants, and yes, there's a Portillo's just a couple miles down the road. So I think everybody will be happier with this location. So, and if you want to go to McDonald's or Burger King, I can't remember. Anyways, there's a fast food restaurant right down the street too, and there's
and it sounds like it's the right size for our current size too. So
exactly,
it is.
So hopefully Jim and I will get everything buttoned up, and I can hopefully make an announcement within the next week or two. So
cool.
I will say that I think, given just changes in, I mean, things are getting more expensive. So be prepared for the fact that, like table fees may have to migrate upwards a little bit. I saw other shows like Tandy Assembly are offering sponsorships. We may want to consider that as a way. And there's 2 things. There's 2 things working against us. One is inflation, and the other one is, as Grant indicated, and I know people will probably judge me or second guess me till the cows come home, but we unloaded a lot of our pent up auction stuff in November because it had been hanging around for a decade, but we're not getting necessarily a ton of auction materials. We'll probably get more since we have a year to between fest this time as opposed to 6 months, but I think we need to be more realistic on what the auction is going to bring in the fest, and so we need to kind of be more conservative in how much profit that's going to bring in to offset the cost of the venue.
Yeah, and that's just the retro computing as a whole is getting really expensive. Everybody's, there's a lot more demand for them now, so the price has gone up on every platform. You make money on eBay now. It's an investment. It's not just a collector thing.
That is right.
Maybe we just got to get some of the famous people to sign a bunch of shirts and auction those off. That's what we got to do.
Well, and that may be, another piece. I just was came back from VCF Southeast, which was in Atlanta, right outside of Atlanta. And the Southeast, I talked to Earl, who is the president of that club, or ACHS, Atlanta Historical Computing Society, AHCS, I guess what it is. And they make T-shirts up, and I know Glenside used to do T-shirts and sell them as a fundraiser for the show. We probably do need to look at being more creative. We kind of got a little lazy on having to look at the profit centers for the show in the past few years, just because we either haven't had a show or we had all that auction material that we could unload very easily and gave quite a bit of money to the club as a part of it, as a function of that. So we probably need to look at stuff like that and see. But the other one is obviously, table fees have been the same for a number of years, and so do we need to rationalize increase? I know there was, in some of the discussions over the past few months, people are like, yeah, $20, that's nothing, right? I'm not gonna not do it if it's $20 or $30, or if they increase it to double, it's not that big a deal. But I do want to make sure that I really would like to just recover what is necessary to put on the fest, because I don't see a lot of value in us continuing to increase the Glenside treasury, because we don't do anything with that money that's there. So if we were doing something with it, then it'd be different, but it just sits there and makes 6 cents on the dollar every year. So, or 0.6 cents on the dollar every year, whatever it is, the interest rate is on a checking account, which is worthless. So,
and Glenside's a nonprofit, so basically you do want to break even. That's the goal. You're not trying to make a ton of money. So
it is, and I think everybody kind of looks at it as like, let's make sure there's plenty of money in there so that we don't have, if we have something like nobody comes to a fest and we have to pay for it out of the treasury or whatever, then so be it, and that's fine. But I think we got $17,000 in the treasury right now, and that's plenty, in my opinion, to be comfortable with the group. I know there are groups that don't have any money, and so everybody's scraping around to do stuff, but there's plenty in the treasury right now. And so charging more for people to come to the fest or have a table or whatever at the fest, only to put that money in the treasury where it doesn't do anything. I'd rather let everybody have that money and they could go put it
cover
towards
the
down
costs,
payment on
and
it.
then
Right.
you don't need to make a profit on it. I like the idea of bringing the T-shirts back. I know Rainbow Fest did that, CoCoFest at the beginning too, and I always liked having that souvenir and I've shown them on the show, back from '86 on, where I'd have something as a souvenir and remember that show. I'd pick up a T-shirt. Well, I remember I met Steve York at this show or whatever type thing, and then having that come back and be an official club fundraiser, I definitely would buy one.
Yeah, that'd be my suggestion: is sell more merch. Not just T-shirts, but buttons, mouse pads, stuff like that. So stickers. I don't know.
I think that's fine. As far as T-shirts go, I'll just, I know Grant early in the show was, you were asking like what kind of announcements you want. I think that would be a request of mine is, if somebody's interested in helping out with just that piece, or maybe to Fred's point, the idea of sellable merch at the show, that would be great. I'll be honest, I love the idea of a T-shirt. I really do. I absolutely do. I have so many T-shirts from these events that I need another T-shirt like I need a hole in the head. So it's really not something that I want to take up and go. But somebody,
you've got auction items now you can put in.
I do. I have a ton of them. But I think somebody out there has a passion for that. So if they do, then absolutely.
When it comes to something like T-shirts, it's probably something you want most of them pre-sold so that you can order a fixed quantity of them and then have just whatever's left to fill out an order for the show.
Yeah. Or you can sell them online afterwards. Like CoCoTALK has their own T-shirts. Taylor and Amy Show have their own T-shirts, etc. And there are a lot of T-shirt places now that do the on-demand thing. Obviously, those would probably cost a bit more than bulk ordering a few to begin with. But if you can get a minimum order, and then you can sell them off on the website afterwards, type thing.
Yeah, buy it at the fest and it shows up home.
Yep. I'm sure the club, I know we've done it in the past, and I know that we talked about it. It usually just ends up being something where the fest grows very close in time, and it's not something that's already kind of taken care of, and so it kind of gets dropped at the last minute because it's not an absolute requirement. So I think now is a great time to say, who out there has a passion for that? Because I know there's some artwork, so there's some artistic skills necessary and whatnot to that stuff, like merch and whatnot. And just get in touch with me or Grant or somebody from the club, because we'd love to have somebody that has a passion around that to bring that to fruition.
I'm trying to remember, there was somebody at the fest, we were still at Heron Point, that did shirts on their own that they sold. I'm trying to remember who that was that did the design.
Yeah,
they were
well,
white.
if you do, let me know.
Was it Carlos?
Yeah, it might have been Carlos.
I that would be my first thought, but
and I know Ron, I think you've designed some shirts. I can't remember if they were used or not, but I think Ron DeVoe actually helped design some designs. So we actually kind of had a competition there where people were kind of like putting submissions of what the design would be for that particular year.
But kudos to Grant for contacting a lot of it's a lot of work. It's unfortunate that we had to do that. I really was kind of hoping we'd have a longer term relationship with our existing venue, but kudos to Grant for reaching out and grabbing these additional locations. And so hopefully we'll make the Carol Stream location a workable one, and then we'll be done. We'll have a date. We'll have a venue. Everybody can make their plans accordingly, and then. We'll move
I get
on.
to try a new burger joint, so I'm all good with that too. So.
17 grand makes me think of free SDC for everybody that comes through the front door. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, you go ahead and join us. You go in one of the business meetings and you bring that up. We'll see how that floats. Okay.
Well, if you buy them in bulk, it'd be half the price, right?
The problem is, Ron, you can't buy them in bulk because the chip is getting impossible to find. So both Ed and Frank are having trouble even getting chips. You could only make a certain amount and then you're out.
Well, there's going to be a second gen one, right?
Nope. We're still waiting for Darren to officially prove, because he has to allow, because he's in control of the design, he has to allow them to switch chips. And up till now, he doesn't want to do that.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
So maybe we can have, these boxes like this with our logo on it so that we can cry.
That's right. Now, one of the things that, I know Mark Marlette doesn't sell the Super ID anymore, as far as I know. And I know there's been some people that have asked if there was ever going to be another batch of the Glenside ID controller. So there may be an opportunity to do some sort of hardware project as another piece, as a profit center or whatnot. We may actually take some serious look at doing something like that along with the t-shirts and the merch idea, just because I'm running the numbers right now and I haven't shared with Grant yet. But I mean, the amount that the Carol Stream location is quoting us is going to be a bit of a stretch for us. So it's not going to be just a slam dunk for us to do it with table fees and an auction proceeds and membership fees or admission fees. Even if we bring back admission fees, it's not going to kind of just be just like, oh, this is no big deal. So we've got to get more creative. Luckily, we've got almost 12 months to do so.
Yeah, and I think one thing has changed since Glenside was manufacturing the ID controllers earlier, is that you've got like Ken sponsor PCBWay and other people that can actually manufacture these a lot cheaper than you would have done back in the day, so that you can actually make a bit of a profit on it and still sell it for a reasonable price.
Right. And there may be an opportunity to do like a retro kind of, because the current Glenside ID controller is, I mean, it's this enormous board.
Yeah,
it's like the size of a,
it doesn't fit any cartridge case known to man.
That's right. So, maybe there's two versions of it when we get people to buy two, right? We buy one as a collector's edition, which is this old, this really long board that's, like $30 or $40. And then we do one that's actually like, like useful.
And maybe even manufacturing some other ones, like Pedro's come up, like we just showed today in the news, but Pedro did a little static RAM 64K upgrade, that type of stuff where he doesn't really want to be a manufacturer per se. Like maybe that's something we could pick up some designs that are, kind of donated out to the public anyway. And actually, because some people just don't want to deal with having to order custom made boards from PCBWay or whatever else. And they could just get it, Glenside can make a few, maybe do them on demand each year. You can come pick them up at the fest type thing and, make a bit of profit or two.
Yeah, I think the key is making sure that, we want to be just like I think Grant mentioned earlier, that although I don't know of any current CoCo periodicals, the stated, the stated point of the newsletter was not to compete with those periodicals. I think the same is true for these kind of things. You wouldn't want to be in a position where you're
like the SDC, you'd be competing with Ed, you'd be competing with Frank. You don't want to do that. But if it's something that, Pedro's come up with a design, has no interest in manufacturing himself, nobody else has really jumped out for it, you could just say order 10 or whatever for a fest or whatever. So,
yep. Sorry, I didn't mean to take over your conversation, but hopefully that answered everybody's questions.
No, thanks a lot, Jim. I appreciate it.
Very helpful. All informative.
I don't know. Do we have anything else in the show to discuss? I guess we got project updates and acquisitions if anybody has.
Yeah, that'd be the next item.
I already
Yes,
mentioned
sir.
my one little update is that Floyd Wrestler's Space app. I managed to find it again, so that'll be on the next COU, but that's about it for me.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Or
I don't
anybody
really
have any
have an
updates?
update, but I have a concept here. Here is my Greg Bloedow submission concept. We're going to all turn in our articles to CoCo 1, 2, 3 in different formats. I'm going to pick
There you go.
4 Data Generals AOS VS, and I'm going to send it on 9-track tape.
Oh, there you go. Are you going to be running at 1600 BPI or 800?
What are we at? We are at 1600.
Okay. So
cool.
my old PDP 11 should be able to read that. That'll be good.
You know, I gotta beat. We'll use radio waves at 75 baud.
Can we
That'll
fax
type.
listings over to Grant?
Yes, we can. It is
Okay,
possible.
so now we just need a physical address and let's inundate him with media.
I just have a small update.
Go ahead, James.
The arcade game designer compiler is up and running. I added a peephole optimizer so it makes better code. And at the moment, I am getting the compiler output to piece together with the game engine. There's a few little things that were different because I did the one that was based on the 6809 port and the other was based on the 6502 port. So there's a few things that are named slightly different that I got to redo. And I have to do the keyboard IO, which is, I've already done some of it this morning while you guys were talking. And I have to do the interrupt handler. And then I should be up and
And for those that don't know what your project is, you're the AGD, the game designer originally on the Spectrum. This is your MC10 6803 version you're talking about, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
And it should also work on the original Alice.
Right, yeah. Cool. Anybody else have a project update or acquisition I'm going to talk about?
I suppose I could give a little update as well. I've started work on Andark 3 again. And yeah, just basically working on the graphics for all of the various rooms that make up the adventure game. And it's rather painstaking work. It's all using, well, most of it is using draw statements that are copied into high memory on the CoCo 3. And then the game reads the draw statements from high memory and then renders them on the screen. And not quite satisfied with the results just because it seems to run kind of slowly. So I need to figure out a way to optimize it and speed it up. But yeah, progress is going slowly. It's just kind of tedious, coding all of those draw statements. And so that's what
just a quick question on the way you're reading it. You said you're poking it to high memory. So are you just using a for next loop, peeking it back in to get the draw string?
Basically, yeah. I'm doing a for next loop with an LPeak and then
LPeak is slow, so that would be part of it.
Is there a faster way?
One of the ways that like Nick and a few others do to load graphics and stuff is they'll reserve an 8K MMU chunk in the lower 32K. Your basic program has to be small enough to handle this. This may not work in your case, but you can just poke that one MMU block and then you can use just a regular peak, which is a bit faster. And then you can use the %H using hex, which is also a little bit faster. And that might get your speed back up. Or you can just write a little ML routine that just grabs it out for you at full throttle.
Yeah, I would just do a user machine language routine that copies it into the same string, and it'll be, instant.
Lickety fast.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking is maybe rewriting that routine in ML or something that might speed it up a lot.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Cool. Well, so it's good to hear you're working on the game. I know I gave you some suggestions and a couple of minor bug fixes for the Control 3 that will be part of the review.
Yeah.
And some of them I meant more to be long term because I'll have to do some changes on my end to handle some of that too, but just some thoughts I had.
Well, one of them I've already implemented. I've already made the fix. So
Oh, okay, cool. That's that null thingy with the
the null
yeah.
value thing. Yeah, I fixed it already. So yeah.
Yeah, I put my user hat on and blew up the program. Basically.
Very good.
But it looks really good. It's actually advanced more since the last time we showed it on the show. But we'll keep that, I think, for the actual release because hopefully it's not too far off, depending on where it goes.
Yeah, I've kind of run out of bugs to squash, so it's very close to being done, unless some other people find more bugs that I haven't found.
Yeah, that's where I thought I was until Jim Gary started testing his Basic 9 code, and he found 3 bugs in the span of a week.
Yeah. Yep. Well, thanks for your help with that. Yeah.
Yep, no problem. Anybody else updates or acquisitions?
No, but we should have a Jim Jerry corner and have him come on and talk about it, his own stuff that he does.
We have to get him down to a fest is what we need to do.
Yeah, we need to get him.
But he would be
fun.
About an hour long of the show by himself.
Yep.
And that's just to cover last week's programs.
Right.
Yeah. If you're listening.
He was in the chat earlier, so I don't know if he's still listening or not. Yeah, there he is. He said, send air ticket. We've done that before for Simon, so you never know. Or Ken, you can just swing by from your cabin, go pick him up in the Maritimes and bring him down.
Yeah, that's just
that's like half a West Virginia trip or something, isn't it?
Yeah, a couple thousand mile detour.
1,000 here, 1,000 there.
Yeah. Are we ever going to have a game we play on the micro color computer?
We did was it Pac-Man we picked last time?
Yeah, we had Pac-Man.
That's about it though, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was part of the MC10 special.
I guess it's
we were talking at one point about
days.
Possibly doing Dragon and MC10 as an annual thing, as opposed to just when we get a bunch of guests together. That might be a good idea to actually throw in like an MC10 game once a year and a Dragon specific game once a year to kind of cover that.
We could have a Cuthbert special.
But yeah, I mean, there's been so much game development on the MC10 lately, and now James is working on the AGD engine for it as well. That yeah, we could have I'm sure we could do like an annual MC10 game, and we've got emulators and stuff that'll handle it too. So
right,
including online. There's an MC10 emulator itself that Jim is kind of favors, and I think XWare supports MC10 online now too. The XWare online, if I remember, plus Dragon, plus CoCo.
And it's on the Pi.
Yep, main, etc. Anybody else, or should we call it a show? And I'll give a reminder right now, even if some other people have some stuff to say, that the Amigos, of course, are having their fundraiser for the Children's Miracle Network hospital stuff that I mentioned earlier. We've got the bit.ly/Amigathon 2022. Feel free to go over there and watch them play a bunch of games. They've got another probably about 6 hours left of that. I think it ends at 9 Eastern. But if you have a couple bucks you can donate to the cause, it'd be great. Last I saw, they just passed the $4,000 mark. So
I guess the Twitch link changed because it stopped working.
Or it could be their hillbilly internet, as they call it, just decided to shut down in the middle of the show. That's happened before.
And if you guys get a chance to stop over at Ron's garage and pick yourself up a big plate of spaghetti. You got a big old picture of a plate of spaghetti on there. If anything, it'll make you hungry.
A virtual spaghetti feed.
That's right, buddy.
That's kind of like diet spaghetti because it's not real.
That's right.
I'm virtually satisfied.
I also have a screen print of a rainbow program that you could make pizza with your CoCo. So
I remember that program. I typed it in and actually ran it. I think I have it on one of my discs somewhere.
Ron, you'll have to give us a review of the CoCo cookbook from Tandy later on. The software.
Yeah, that's a neat thing too. Yeah, that's really clever software too. Whoever wrote that.
You'll have to do a review. I've never really played with it much, so I have it somewhere. But
yeah.
So if that's it, and nobody else has any updates or acquisitions, I think we can call it a day. And if you're inclined to do so, please hit the Amigathon, contribute a bit of money for the kids, and we'll call that a wrap.
This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer, MC10, and Dragon systems. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at CoCoTALK.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CoCoTALK@CoCoTALK.live. Consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, click on the Patreon link on our website, CoCoTALK.live. CoCoTALK would not exist without the community, its cast, crew, and contributors. Thanks go to Alan Murphy, Amigos Retro Gaming, Bill Noble, Brian Joyce, Brian Weaver, Curtis Boyle, D. Bruce Moore, Danny O'Connor, David Ladd, Eric Canales, George Jansen, Grant Leedy, James Diffendapper, Jason Reichert, Jim Brain, Ken Reichert, Ken Waters, Mark Bosley, Mark Overholzer, Mikey Furman, Mr. Dave 6309, Nick Marentes, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Paul Fiscarelli, Richard Lorbieski, Rick Adams, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Ron Delvaux, Samuel Gimes, Sloopy Malibu, Steve Bjork, Terry Steggy, Tom C., and many, many more. Please help support the CoCo community. A list of various contributors and resources are available at imacoconut.com. That's IMACOCONUT.com. The original CoCoTALK theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Sheeler. The new CoCoTALK theme song is copyright 2020 by D. Bruce Moore. Both are mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. CoCo forever!
Close enough. Okay, we're back.
Good show. Good show.
Not super long.
Let's see, we got 3 hours 36.
Yeah, less than 4. That's the criteria we're shooting for. So.
All right. Next week, same time, same place, and.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like the
Okay.
week goes
Same
by.
bad time, same bad place.
Like 2 days go by and then we got the show.
Right?
Wickedly fast. Hey, Fred, what are those nuts there back there? Those cocoa nuts on your shelf?
Let's see. Like
Other side. Other side.
Back there.
The rocks.
No, other side.
Oh, the rocks.
They look like cocoa nuts.
So, yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this in the past, but one of my side hobbies, in addition to the CoCo, is I'm a rock collector. I'm a bit of an amateur geologist, if you will. And so I've got various different types of rocks that I've collected.
Any meteorites there?
Maybe somewhere.
Where is it?
It's turn all the lights out. You'll find it.
Speaking of which, this rock here is called Lake Bonneville Tufa rock, and it glows orange under black light.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got all kinds of stuff. We've got some agates and some magnetites.
Any fool's gold?
Yeah, I've got fool's gold somewhere. Here's some mahogany obsidian. Okay. So Utah is a great place for rock collecting if you're a rock hound at all. There's national parks, there's tons of BLM land, and there's all types of there's really interesting geology out here. So
where do you live?
I live about about half an hour west of Salt Lake City, near
Oh, okay.
near the Great Salt Lake, near the Bonneville Salt Flats.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So there's a place been out an hour away out in the West Desert where you can find geodes. And
so what's the difference between the lake there that's salty and one in Israel that's dead and it's salty?
Not much difference. The Dead Sea in Israel is saltier than the Great Salt Lake.
Really?
Yeah. But they're both very salty, and you can bob like a cork in either one of them. But
yeah, we have Manitou Lake here that's the same way. In fact, I think it's saltier than the Dead Sea, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, wow, really? Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Salt Lake though is drying up pretty quickly here. So.
It is, yeah.
We have a project to pump ocean water in it because it's less salty, so it's not going to do any harm to do that. So I wonder if they're going to.
Geez, all of you guys are geologists here.
The Salt Lake water level is tied to rain, so.
Yeah, we get a lot of rain, it goes up. If we don't, it goes down. Yeah.
And I understand you can still find living things in the water.
In the Great Salt Lake, yeah, they've got brine shrimp and some brown algae, but that's about it.
Yeah, brine shrimp. Yeah, actually, one of the sea dragon manufacturing plants was at Manitou because they had so much brine shrimp in that lake.
Yeah. So, like what, 30, 40 years, like 40 years ago, some ingenious company caught a bunch of them and packaged them up and sold them as sea monkeys.
Yeah.
You guys remember that?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we were one of the suppliers for that.
Yeah.
Long gone.
We were here too. I'm not sure, but yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah. And right now, the areas around the Great Salt Lake are being mined for salt. So, there's a decent chance you go to the store and buy table salt. It may have come from Great Salt Lake.
Like Morton's there?
Morton in particular. Morton.
Yeah. Believe it or not, there's a Morton's out here too, somewhere. I've
surprised me. They probably have a few different locations. Yeah. Yeah.
I still love the fact that salt, which has been in the ground for 200 million years, has expiry dates when you buy it at the store.
We have that on our water too.
Yeah. Well, kind of a reason for that is eventually water can start growing things in it.
Well, you get more for your money then, don't you?
Depends on what grows in it. You might
salad with your water.
Really nasty.
Yeah, some amoeba that
Yeah.
You got some free antibiotics or something in there, yeah.
Yeah.
More than you bargained for there.
Or anthrax.
Drink me and die.
All right.
Hey, we put a fork in it.
Yeah.
Let's hit the button, Frank.
All right. Goodbye.